Devang, just let us know when we are good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
We live?
Done. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just admit the participants. Yep, we have a full house. All right. Thank you, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. F.Stop welcomes you to one another very exciting session today. We welcome Rajiv Menon, sir, to F.Stop. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and agreeing to speak at our platform. To introduce F.Stop and what we do as a part of our activities, I would request Devang to show a small clip about F.Stop.
Just one second.
Thank you, Devang. I would like to acknowledge the presence of all our panelists who are here today. Thank you, all of you, once again for your love and support that you have given. Thank you, Amit sir, Swapan, Anil Mehtaji, Sudeep, Soumya, Fauzan, Prashant, Dinesh sir, Tarun sir, Joseph, and all our speakers. Thank you once again for your wonderful love and support always. Uh, Thank you, Sudeep, for once again for connecting us to such an eminent speaker again as Rajiv sir, and making this session possible. You truly have been our bridge to the wonderful industry, the film industry, and always helped us so much. Thank you once again, Rajiv Menon sir, for agreeing to be a part of F-Stop and agreeing to share your journey and some of your work with all of us today. We are truly excited. We already have a full house. Um, I would request Samar Joda, thank you, Samar, for agreeing to be a moderator for this session here. And I would like to hand over the session to you. Before we go ahead, just a quick announcement. We request all the participants to please be on mute and keep your videos off except the panelists. The session is approximately going to be around 90 minutes to about 2 hours, and we'll be allowing all of you to type in your questions in the chat box, and selected questions will be sent to Samar to ask to Rajiv sir. Over to you, Samar. Thank you.
Excellent. We are going to be having a very, very exciting, I would call this not speaker, but this is going to be, Rajiv is going to be, it's a master class. And, there's always this kind of mystery for a lot of photographers that how do you come into moving pictures, and people who want to do moving pictures, films, they think that should we start from still and this is how we go to moving pictures. And Rajiv has the most amazing journey of where he's coming from. He's obviously done some brilliant films. He's not just behind the camera, but he's directed, won lots of awards. So he's got lots to offer. And so I'm not going to waste time on doing all the formal introduction, because we know the man, about his work, the films he's done. Let's just start with Rajiv. Welcome very much to, really, really looking forward to, you actually demystifying that how a film person looks at photography and what are the connections, because you come from a very amazingly diverse background, coming from cinema from South, and you have worked on so many levels, right from doing ad films to serious cinema to, you yourself have directed films. So, over to you. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to be on this panel because the rest of the panelists are so incredibly talented, and I admire so many people's work on this panel. So I'm humbled that you called me, and I think I should thank Sudeep for connecting me, because I think forums such as these are important because it sort of tells us. I mean, everybody knows everything about in YouTube. You have information as to what to do, and but very rarely do we actually kind of look at how does a person create? What are the things that sort of drive a person creatively? And one of the things that was very important for me as a filmmaker is that when I joined the Film Institute, it was very difficult to even get a role of color film. So when we used to get roles to do, our exercises, we could also load our camera. So at the end of loading the camera, we would take two rolls of cine negative out and put them into a cassette so that we can expose it. I mean, things were like so difficult in the 80s to actually be taking pictures. So if you got a roll of film and you wanted to stretch it over a week, and make sure you click the trigger only when you really thought it was required. It wasn't like this thing of, kata, 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 you can keep on shooting as much as you want. So A, you respected it. B is that I think uh, uh, as a cinematographer, there are various things you bring into the medium. I mean, you are doing something, but it's not independent of what you have seen. You have learned a lot from the films that you've seen, and in while you're in the institute, you see a lot of new realism. You see a lot of international cinema, and then you have grown up with commercial Indian cinema, and then you're also seeing Doordarshan. So you're having a lot of visual information, coming at you from all kinds of ways, and then something starts, forming. And when you see a film, sometimes you get carried away by the music, sometimes the story, and sometimes the direction, and so many things sort of affect you. So when you start studying photography, somehow I felt I needed to study still photography. I mean, I really had to look at that because I felt that was the mother art. That's the kind of basis, the physics and the imaging and the compositions. You needed to just stop the image for some time and say, what am I doing? Am I composing this well? Those kind of thoughts sort of really got me worked up. And then I started doing that. So I had an exercise once, which where everyone talks about one's successes, and but one also has to talk about one's failures, and we learn also from our failure. So I remember, I think I was shooting a commercial for a coffee, and we had gone to a forest, and we were shooting. It was about a film crew which went in, and they were, discovering something, and the director was in trouble, and finally she drank great filter coffee, and everything became all right, something to that effect. And then this was just pouring rain, it was just raining cats and dogs. And it was like, so everybody's saying, what do we do now? We cancel and go. I said, no, I have shot in the rain. I have shot Tuhire. I have done this and all that. So I went ahead and shot it. And it was a teak forest in Pollachi. And after taking 2 shots, I realized, shit, man, everything looks the same here because it's rows of teak plantation. You pan your camera 90 degrees, it's the same. You pan this side, it's the same. There's no compositional lines here, and everything is looking the same. And I edited it, and I was so miserable with that film. I said, it's so bad. I mean, why did this go this way? And so you need to sort of really go back and start studying and saying, why is your long shot not good? And if you want to see why your long shot is not good, you need to go back and study Ansel Adams. How did he shoot it well? Why was it right? And what was the reason why, the Vietnam War films, most of them people are walking along, rivers, because that's giving you those compositional lines. So, you could be in the middle of rain, but if you want it to come into your camera, the light has to be right, the composition has to be right, and your vanishing point and everything has to be right. So you need to always go back and study and say that, okay, a great long shot, if you want to get consistently, then you got to study the great landscape work. And nothing sort of makes me feel so small and humble like watching an Ansel Adams picture. I mean, I just feel completely humbled by it.
Yeah, so so let's speak on photography because earlier talks we had, and you had these really, I mean, I think to me one of the best examples of even including Cartier-Bresson and how people see the context where they're coming from and how they have this fresh look. We spoke about it that how there's this stereotyping whether you are a tourist or established photographer. Once you land up at the Taj, you usually end up doing those. So let's talk on that space, please.
I think this is a problem that we are product. I mean, we are in this Instagram era, where everybody wants to post and everybody wants to do everything, and we are unfortunately in a period of sameness, And if you look at in the 80s and you saw a Citroen car, it looked completely different from that of a BMW, and that looked completely different from that of a Mercedes Benz. But now you look at all the hatchbacks, it's very difficult to find out which hatchback is. If it's just going on the road, it's very difficult to say. Every design seems to copy everything. All phones seems to look like the same. I mean, why does that happen? And that's happening to us as creative people because we kind of look at an image and say, okay, can I take an image like that unconsciously? So we got to sort of, ask the question as to why did this image come into being? Why is it that we really think this long shot this way is important? So if when I go to Paris and shoot, I want to somehow take a shot in front of Eiffel Tower. If I want to prove that I'm in Paris. And that's the same for people who are coming into India. So you have a film like Slumdog Millionaire. That film is about the slums of Bombay. It's about these two boys, Salim and Jamal. I mean, the whole story is there. I mean, it's about somebody wanting to become rich and somebody wanting to enjoy life. And suddenly, for no reason, these boys run and they get onto a train and they're sitting on the top of a train. And then you get the shot of the Taj. And they are going into the Taj Mahal and they're taking some, GoPro or some other kind of smaller digital camera, and they have taken that shot. And I'm thinking that why have they taken this? Why have they taken this to Taj? What is the reason? And then I say, oh, they are actually telling every foreigner, boss, this is Amitabh Bachchan. This is India, where the Taj is. And this is Amitabh Bachchan, who is the biggest star. And they don't manage to get Amitabh Bachchan to actually act in the film. So they get Anil Kapoor and it becomes Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in a different way. But then you start looking at why is it that India is equal to Taj? And then you find most of these iconic images which tell you that you're in New York or you're in Paris are symmetrical images. They are those images which you find have gone onto a stamp because stamps circulated this. So when you look at Japan, we always see it as that Mount Fuji and one bullet train going in front of it, you know. And those kind of images are from postcards, from stamps, and it goes into our collective memory. So when we are going and telling a film, we want to use a shorthand and quickly get into the audience's collective memory and say, hey, we are in that place now, let's start telling the story. So we are in some ways using that shorthand. Now the question is, when we are doing that, are we going to take the same stamp side shot which was created in the 1920s or 1910, or are we going to go and study the work of those photographers from that city, from that country, who have shot it in different lights, who have shot it in a abstraction? So you search out for those still photographers and their vision of it, and say that this is a very interesting way. So when you look at the pictures of Raghu Rai on the Taj and see how many ways he has shot it, and then you see Steve McCurry's famous picture with the train and the Taj behind and the fields, and so suddenly Taj is not only from the back of Yamuna, but it's also, there are fields around, there are also different things happening. And so I think it's a learning, because the long shot in a film is not just getting a pictorial detail, it's telling you where it is, what kind of weather you're shooting in, meaning what time of the year it is, and also what kind of socioeconomic backdrop is. All that has to come in one shot, and you need to ask that question, are we communicating all that? So you need to study it, and kind of look at their choices and say that it must be a definitive image, it must be something of yours in it. So don't copy, but try to understand why people take a picture, and then try to figure out, are you able to find a way of finding an image which will be unique.
Yeah, so let's look at some of the examples, because I think you were showing me on Carpet Rajon. I mean, let's have some of that, please.
Yeah, I'll just share some of the still images which really fascinate me, and I kind of admire and adore a lot of still photographers around the world and in India. So let's try looking at some of that work and how it sort of directly influences us in some ways. Sorry. This is a wrong picture. I think in the process of shifting something I have, yeah. So I think as everybody who, gets into photography, we are in some ways influenced by Ansel Adams. And I mean, this tectonic river is something I keep looking at it, and I look at these pictures and say, Jesus, how did this guy, manage to take these pictures? I mean, just the fact that you need to have a foreground, middle ground, background, and that kind of search, making you search. And I had the same problem recently. I was in Japan and I was shooting a film on some sumo wrestler. It's just a Tamil comedy film, and I desperately wanted to go and take some sequence near Mount Fuji. So the production was saying, what has that got to do? And they were trying to, I had a fight I had to take a shot before Mount Fuji. And then you go and find how all the people have shot around Mount Fuji, and you find all the frames now. And there's a software which you can actually find out and say, no, I'm probably not going to go to where the tourists are, but I can actually, and there are 5 lakes, and probably in one of these lakes, you get me permission. And they got me permission, and I could go and shoot it there. It was really, I mean, that mountain is so beautiful, and it was so great, and that you feel that you actually captured a bit of Japan, and you'd have missed out, and had you been not there. So I mean, a lot of it is attributed to these great, and of course, nobody teaches you better than to see. I mean, like even like a simple picture like this. I mean, so many great all of you are from Ahmedabad, and I mean, it's just the way he is able to capture this light and this, I mean, reflection of this, what is it, Kabutar Khana or whatever it is on that. And there is something of so much of India without actually having to, just a wall and some light and somebody sleeping. I mean, it's like, to me it is. But the picture that I really kind of admire so much is this picture from Kashmir. And I was like so taken in by this because the moment is so right. I mean, if he had just gone down by a few inches, the lines of the mountain would have clashed with that of the lady. There's just that little bit of separation. Her hands are just up at the right time. The way the fabric is falling, somebody's turning. There's a kid hidden behind it. So many things are happening, and you're looking down into this Kashmir. You're not, it's not the Shikara and just this Dal Lake touristy shot. It's coming from somewhere else, and the monsoon's over. The clouds are hanging there. It's so much that when I went to Kashmir, I said I wanted to somehow go to a hill and see from where this was shot. So I kind of kept begging the production manager that, ye view kahan se milta hai, ye view kahan se. So finally I went on top of some place. Now it's a CRPF camp. And I went and tried to figure out where they had actually shot this one, but things have changed very much. So, you become inquisitive about why does a picture look so brilliant, and why the woman raising her hands and just making it like the call to the divine is, she must have been talking about something, but it just gives you that feeling of an older woman standing, the other women standing. I love this picture so much. And this is from Kerala, so it's just Kathakali being taught, and the way the that is also, I didn't know that he had traveled that much in Kerala. And of course, this famous picture of this joy and celebration, and followed by death of Gandhi. I mean, and to me, this picture was really something I used to kind of think of. How did he get that flare? How did he get, what was the ASA he was shooting in? Did he push this negative? I mean, it's so modern and so grungy. We'll be sort of racking our brains saying that get that old lens and try to get this flare and put one light here. But it's all happening, and it's happening when somebody is actually getting on top of a gate to announce something, and it just tells you what the chaos this country is going to go into, in that one picture. So I think Cartier-Bresson's, they've got so many great images, but I'm really looking at those images from India because they are closer to me, to our emotional heart. So that's one of the things that fascinates me a great deal. Then there, you also look at somebody like a woman like Vivian Mayer. She's taking care of kids and all that, and how did this woman just go out on the streets and take such great pictures? I mean, this picture of just one lady walking, and the lines are so strong, and she's, I mean, is it photojournalism? There is some, it feels like I'm watching a Edward Hopper painting or something like that. I mean, like the reflection on the glass there, and this loneliness of this woman, and these huge high ceilings and high pillars, and then the curve in the end, there's light there. In the perfection of her pictures, to say that she was walking around with the rolly code and taking pictures. And I remember, I think in one of the talks that Swapan Parikh had about his dad, I'm such a great fan of his dad, and he mentioned that most people were walking around with rolly cords, and how 35mm sort of revolutionized this. But this woman had gone back to this 120 format and still managing to get some of these pictures, and it's quite amazing, and they were discovered later, and this is also so incredible because there's this absolute fashion diva like woman there, and there's some kind of an out of focus in front, and what is she, Jacqueline Kennedy type kind of beauty, and all the women who are in motion are older. So it's like as though New York is meant for young, fashionable people, and the others are hiding their faces and going. So there is some kind of a story that is coming out of them when they just clicking that one picture, they're getting so much, and we as, you know, people who are part of the cinematography process, we are suckers for stories. I mean, it's not only light and composition that's really moving us, it's actually which point in your story, what is the emotion you're trying to get at. And I think it's very important for us to study um, the works of people, and you admire people who can go onto the street and just do it. And then you also see that there are others who create an environmental portrait, so they are adding something. And that's where I felt a lot of, I could connect with some of these people, because cinematography and advertising, it's all about, what can I say, a make believe world. So you're always adding a prop, or you're adding something to it. And so the question is, from the mundane, how can I add something and just make that visual unique and memorable? So you're trying to just add something to it. And that's another thing, that the conflict between observing and interfering. And all of cinema is actually about, we are creating things, but when it's all edited together, it should look seamless and alive. So if very precisely compose and do everything so precise, it can look so staged that people can feel it becoming sterile. So the question is, how do you get in a design style going without sort of completely so you watch a lot of people's work that way, it looks like a kabuki mask, or this kind of idea of what a lot of work must have gone into them to create these images which look like portraits, but they are sort of tuned in with so many other things. I think I've been talking a lot. I would love to hear everything else in the
No,
panel.
I'm actually very pleased with this, because I think, the way you look at photography, and because, the way you deconstruct these images, I think for a lot of us, that's really important. It's, and what I really love in all these talks you've had earlier is that, your such keen interest from being in the business of moving pictures, and how your inspiration so strongly comes from really history of still photography. And I think so. Please continue. We are very eagerly watching.
Yeah, and so I think I mean, like what we were looking at is the beauty of nature, and the greatness of nature, and how like Ansel Adams said, is that he saw nature as God's drawing board. And so people like Robert Frank or others, Robert Adams, would say that what has man done to it? So I'm more interested in that. So you have these two sides of people looking at like, wow, this world is so beautiful, this mountain is so beautiful, this river is so beautiful. And from that wow factor to human beings and the way human beings are shot, and to beauty, I mean, it's obvious that the other ugly side of human existence, which is pain, suffering, and our great desire to kill each other and find better and better ways to kill each other, is it was something that was seen as something very heroic. Like when you see in history, you said first battle of Panipat, somebody won. Second battle of Panipat, Akbar won. So you just saw it as that, but you didn't know who got mutilated, what happened to those people who were dead there, who are the soldiers who were dying, how many horses got killed. I mean, we never had that. But I think photography created a lot of empathy, and it created this great anti-war movement, which I think has most young people feel strongly about, not to go for the war. I think Robert Capa's pictures have had such a strong influence that he who sort of, I mean, these pictures of this D-Day Normandy landing, I mean, I think completely influenced Saving Private Ryan so much. I mean, like you do feel that a lot of that imagery is you really wanted to actually feel you're getting inside the water and why it was so stormy and what was happening in the world and what people went through in the D-Day. So the war photographers sort of somehow took us into places which were either about people winning medals or something, but not about I mean real gritty side of war. And that I think when it went further into Vietnam War, I mean that's when it's not all about victory. I mean some of our people are just getting killed here, and things are looking rather bleak, and it is a horrific war, and war is happening all over the world, and that and to see texture and to see contrasting ideas of uh, these kind of images which came in, that the helicopter there, the wind is hitting the grass, and these people are struggling and they've been waiting there to get out. This whole idea of helicopters coming picking people up, which then influenced Apocalypse Now, which is a film that I saw some maybe 18 times before I shot Bombay. I just adore Storaro and Coppola in that particular film, and then I saw Killing Fields and so many of this thing to understand that when you're in war, you cannot start doing your action like I put a punch here, usne yahan gir gaya, wahan gir gaya. It is the action is not done like that. You have to have that can I say that entropy, that kind of chaos of the war has to be captured inside your thing. So that's something that I kind of feel. And this, I mean, there's just a child being breastfed, and then there is a American GI who probably thinks that she's also a commie. But life is going on. Children are getting born inside the war, and the kind of the hopelessness. Why am I sitting here? What am I doing? And James Natchway, in the modern sense, is really something. I mean, the kind of the feet hanging on top of a turret of a tank which you can't see, and the fact that the entire neighborhood has lost all its roofs and people are only cycling there, and in between all this, normalcy is returned, but you have actually completely decimated Kabul as a city, and there's something about the childlike joy of children sitting on top, which is you don't even see them, but you know that they're funny because their feet are dangling there, and this kind of imagery is so powerful, and Sebastian Salagoda's this image is so strong about these miners who are, going there, and it looks like Jesus Christ, this man who's just waiting there, and everybody else's backs are there. They're all crawling, and there's no sky here. People are just going deeper and deeper into this hell to, for gold, and they just, and what's happening? It's like they're like termites. They're just all over the place, and then when he comes to India, I mean, this is so powerful an image. It reminds me of what's happening right now on the streets of India. And there is a poor father who's pushing. There's a little child who's sleeping, and there is a little bit of fun there, and the other children are going, and you can feel that coal dust all over them, And in between all this, that electric pole, everything is like perfect. Had he clicked just a little earlier or later, that cloth would have cut that line, And these guys are getting that movement also right, as well as and they're telling the story, and I'm fascinated by how they get this one picture of the Rajasthan Canal. I used to keep on watching again and again, and I was fascinated by this burning sun and this fabric of these ladies and how they're carrying these pipes. And I often wondered, how did the middle woman actually get out of this pipe mess? They look like they got into a kind of a a kind of a thing that they can never get out. Those two pipes, and they're building. Women are building this part of this building of the Rajasthan Canal, which is going to bring them water, and the sun burning down. So I went and shot a song in Kandakunde in Egypt, which is just the opposite of a rain song that, the kind of things that you have done in Tuhire and things like that. But moisture, you wanted to see when you see this picture, you'll feel dry in your lips. I mean, that kind of emotion that you're communicating, he's communicating through his camera is something that is so powerful. And you're seeing everybody's back. You don't have to see everybody's front all the time and still be a powerful image. Then, of course, nobody better than the boss. I mean, we used to wait for illustrated, India Today to come and just to see his pictures. I just love the documentary on Movie about him. And it's great to know that he and his daughter are, actually able to make a picture together. It was so nice to see that. Um, and I just love the quirkiness of this picture of people holding up the background as he just pulled back and taken a picture of the expression of these two people vis-a-vis the man he's shooting, and his series on Mother Teresa, and of course his haunting image of Bhopal and Mrs. Gandhi. Uh, Then, of course, Swapan, as you know, I admire Kishore Parikh's work, and I was lucky that in Chennai we had an exhibition of his work. I think in the last 2 years in the Lalita Kala Academy, and one doesn't get to see so much of this thing when you Google and try to get, but the images are so brilliant, and I think it, you can single-handedly say that the justification of us getting involved in the war and the creation of Bangladesh, a lot of it goes to the imagery that Mr. Kishore Parikh created. It was absolutely I think a big movement inside it. I love that that shoe which is here, and how people are going up these narrow alleys. You don't know where the sniper is going to get them. So, these are all, this kind of idea of capturing Bombay and the different parts of India and this mystical smoke. And you do understand that the movement is important and the color is important and things like that, but you keep looking for how Indians are shooting themselves, and as I was discussing with Samir, that how much of the precursor to travel photography or nature, or what he staged, what he didn't stage. I really don't know about the politics of all that. But to me, when I see that image, that color, it was like, wow, you don't get this on negative, you only get this on Kodachrome or get this on Ektachrome. What is he shooting on? So, yeah, he was shooting on Kodachrome. So, as film photographers, we are in awe of people who get that picture absolutely bang on exposure on Kodachrome, and then have to sit and wait for 2 weeks, 3 weeks to see the transparency. That sort of is what can I say? You kind of admire this. This picture is like wow. I'm sure it's been somebody has asked it to stop here and all that, but it still has a certain foreground and a background, and the steam coming out and the way the lights falling on it, and that red turban, and just and this great image of this monsoon. And you see this so often in Bombay, but just the mother and child begging, oh, what is that? Like it's so powerful and this is something that I always found very fascinating, because how much you can organize it, there was still a bit of luck and things like that, because you have the sandstorm is coming and it flicked before it sort of completely came and drowned it. Because this is something that I always notice when we shoot rain. I mean, if you have a lot of rain, the foreground just goes completely bust. So you need to have less rain in the foreground and you need more rain in the background. It's exactly happening here. There's more sandstorm there, and had he waited a little longer, the sandstorm would have come in, and then this kind of saturation of these colors will not come. And red with that cobalt blue and this thing, and these two pots, the water that they had gone for carrying. I mean, I really find these kind of images very fascinating, and kind of.
Yeah. So, that's brilliant. I think we've had a nice walk through. These are all very iconic images, iconic photographers who have influenced people across the board, including, painters and other artists, not just filmmakers or people who are behind camera. Moving forward, a lot of people are very interested in this space that you have such detailed observation, so much of influence of still photography, history of photography. How does this play with you, when you work with on cinema? Because you are working with one, to begin with, a very, very large canvas, not just in terms of space, but in terms of time, because you're running and you cannot do, it's not a 30-second ad one is working where you just do all the elevator pitch within that much of time. So how do you see, because let's say Bombay is a very good example. When you look at each of those frames, it's like so many pictures put together over those few hours of moving a film, basically. So let's get into that space, how that entire business of connecting yourself into moving pictures.
Yeah, I think in the case um, of, of Bombay, you know that you are, I mean, shooting the riot. You can't shoot in Bombay. You're creating a set in Chennai, so you need to study it. So we had as many pictures that we could get. We were just collecting, and we had points some 500 odd newspaper cuttings from regional languages to everything. And we didn't have any kind of a major photographers, major work covering the Bombay riots. So you had a lot of people who are actually beat photographers going ahead and shooting that work. So you had to kind of look at it and say, which are these pictures which are really moving, that we could connect with, which will evoke in the minds of the audience, and jog back the memory of what happened. So we know that it is a very, very bad situation, and that there's going to be riots and there's going to be burning and there's going to be fire. So some of the defining images that we were seeing is that they were burning a lot of tire. So they were burning truck tires, car tires, cycle tires, and whenever there was a lathi charge, there were a lot of chappals lying on the floor. And then you had these people who had just been killed and left there. So a old Muslim man lying dead there, or somebody. And then there are these mobs with swords and things like that. And then there is this cops, and it took a long time before the kind of military could come in and sort this thing out. So we had the chaos on the street as a big portion in the middle. So Mani and I decided that when we are going to start, uh, we are having a couple who's completely secular, one Muslim and one Hindu, who are marrying. And so they come from a place where they don't know that there is this, they're coming from a very pure, fresh space, the village. And it's raining there. It's always beautiful. And so to create this beautiful place that they came from, there's no one place like that in Tamil Nadu. So we wanted this boat crossing, and we wanted rain soaked thing. And there is no river in Tamil Nadu where you can cross by boat. So the river to cross by boat is in Kerala. And this guy's father, the girl's father, Shaila Banu's father, is a brick maker. So we had this brick. So in behind is the Western Ghats. So okay, so that's his place. And Pollachi is the place where this guy's house is. So we got these two houses close by 20 kilometers. But now, you still need to get all these other things together. And so for that, we had to say that, where do these people meet? I mean, they're going for a wedding. In a Muslim wedding, women dancing, that doesn't happen. But this is a film, so there is going to be a dance. So we shot this dance in Tirumala Nayak Palace in Madurai. So we got Madurai, we got Pollachi, and we have got Kasargod for the in Kerala for the river crossing and stuff like that, and Bekal Fort. This together is creating this incredibly beautiful village, which is actually shot on two states to communicate that mystical, beautiful village from which they come and they get bombed in the city. So before that, how they meet, how they make love, how do they have children, what are the comedy that's going on inside them, and then this whole gray, black, tire burning flames are going to come and engulf them and rip their family apart. And how are they going to survive that ordeal? So to get that arc, you are actually moving from a rain-soaked, village, which has got fresh green and where everything is looking beautiful. And from there, you're going to the, gray, muddy world of Bombay. So some kind of a color graph you're doing, and that kind of color graphing is important to have. I mean, that's where some amount of study of Steve McCurry also becomes important, because the way he uses color is very strong. I know there is a great deal of debate of which being fixed and which is not being fixed, but as a student, I'm not, as a student of photography and as a person who studies photography to express my images better, I am I'm not part of that political debate. I just enjoy watching some pictures and seeing how it can inspire my work, and try to create images. The biggest problem in cinema is that our images have to be new. There has to be something new we have to keep on doing, and to be new, you have to find some source of inspiration. And in this particular case, at that time in cinema, nobody was studying documentaries, for visual style. People were saying that, can I shoot like Hollywood? Can I shoot like, this French film, or can I shoot like that? But that, when you are doing something which is real, why can't you learn from documentary photography? Why can't you learn from photojournalism? There is so much to learn from those sources also, and I think that's what we were trying while we were shooting Bombay.
Yeah, and I think also what happens with a lot of time with cinema is that, we get, because of these big productions going on, people get very caught up in the art direction of it, if you know what I mean, and it almost looks like an ad. A lot of mainstream cinema, at least the ones I'm aware of, let's say from Bombay, I think a lot of it actually gets so much in fine tuning. And then you just wonder, because, and I think that's another reason why they don't sit in your head, because, so, I want to bring you back to, you talked about Bombay, and, what we spoke earlier about cinema coming from regional spaces. I was telling you about that as a kid when I grew up in Hyderabad. I used to see on Banjara Hills all these South Indian Telugu cinema. This is before Jubilee Hills and Cinema City or whatever came up, and how they used to carry all these buckets of red color to throw the paint on, and then there would be Jitendra, and they would shoot it in Telugu, shoot it in in Hindi and all that stuff. Maybe dubbing was expensive, whatever. So point, what we were talking about was that there is a lot of, let's say, the song and dance, for example. Hindi cinema never had the scale of dancing what South Indian cinema, or at least the Telugu cinema, had seen, where you would have like 100 dancers in the background. And then I see that you were talking about people like Prabhudeva and all that, that how a lot of people, let's say, whether it's technicians, whether it's DOPs, or whether it's choreographers, so many started coming to Bombay, and they started bringing their own influence to, and I think especially in cinematography, there are so many amazing cameramen and DOPs who have come from South India into Bombay film industry. I think director is one space where probably language might become a conflict, so it doesn't go too far. So if you would like to talk on that, please.
Yeah, I think you know that I agree with you that there was a period in the 70s, maybe in the 80s, where um, too many dancers and that kind of thing was not happening in Bombay. But if you look at the way Mughal Azam was shot, or the way I mean Pakiza was shot, I mean it's influencing Sanjay Leela Bansali even today. So I mean you had the great period of shooting in Bombay, and but you have to remember that was also the period of great music in Bombay. So I think when you shoot songs, you must have a good song first to start off with, and that song must inspire the whole unit to say, "Boy, this is like something brilliant, and we want to do something outstanding with it." So we were very lucky that I think two things were happening in a thing, that a lot of people who had come out of the can I say the film institutes had got absorbed into mainstream cinema very quickly in the South. So Balu Mahendra was shooting mainstream films, Ashok Kumar was shooting. And so what happened is, somewhere along, because I think when the industry started separating from Chennai, where each local industry was going on, it became necessary that when you went to Hyderabad, you didn't have your carpenters, molders, and all that, and the whole studio was not set up. So you had to find some way of trying to use a natural setting to shoot. So you had Ek Duje Ke Liye, which went all the way to Vizag to shoot along the coastline, or you had the great Chemin, which was shot by Marcus Bartley on the sea. It was a great literary work, but it was shot so well. So the comfort of shooting in studio also creates a boringness in the visual, because it's this basically dynamic portraiture where everybody has to look handsome and beautiful, and for no reason every household used to have this big staircase which went and came out, whether he was a police inspector, whether he was a police chief, whether शान और शौकत थे जीते थे लगा दो staircase. So हर film में बड़ा staircase है, and that staircase has no window, there is no source, so all the lights coming from the top, and it looks like night all the time. So you can understand what those poor cameramen at that time were doing. And color had come in, labs were not so good in Bombay, and all the investments were happening in Chennai. Prasad lab was giving you the best results, so everybody was coming to process there. And to make matters worse, the better cameramen started coming, and people started investing in the newer zoom lenses and stuff like that. So Balu Mahendra and Ashok Kumar were collaborating with younger directors, and they were actually shooting in Ooty and places like that in backlight and giving you that kind of cool feel. So that was happening. And on music, you had L.A. Raja breaking it. So what happened is that before L.A. Raja and after L.A. Raja is a huge thing where music pretty much was similar everywhere. So you had a man who was sitting and composing a tune, and you gave the tune to some orchestra arranger and saying, "Abhi kuch saxophone laga do ya, kuch wahang kar do." So it was outsourced. So increasing westernization is happening, but none of them were actually equipped with Western writing. And Raja bought that in. So when Raja bought that kind of production of sound, I mean, I won't say production of sound, that kind of composition of sound in with Maniratnam and all the filmmakers, Bharati Raja and all of it. And they were suddenly, all of them were breaking out of the studios and saying, can we go to the village and shoot? So the studios became almost, nobody was shooting in the studios, and they would only come back for the song. So what happened is that when the films were realistic and there was something happening in that thing, the distributors and the producers saying, "Hey, make one a commercial thing bhi laga do na. Put one, a nice song. ये कोई Helen का song नहीं है, कुछ sexy song नहीं है. Do something." So the pressure to innovate was happening in music, and that was resulting in changes in the way the choreography is happening. So what was happening internationally, you had MTV opening up, you had Michael Jackson happening, and all that was influencing young choreographers. So I think it'd be wrong to take credit for just cinematography. It was everything was happening at the same time. You had people studying Western classical music and writing scores, which was like creating great background scores with Raja Saab. And then the from Raja comes A.R. Rahman, who takes the whole audio production skill into one different level. Technology helps him. A mainstream director who's like really on top, like Mani Ratnam, gives up Raja to depend on a 23-year-old guy. You know, I mean, like people were ready to try out young people. People were ready to try out a young cameraman. That wasn't happening in Bombay. I mean, this star will say, he shoots me better, so you do that. And then they were shooting the same mini brutes and putting the same butter papers and shooting with it. And suddenly, they were saying that, hey, ये साउथ का फिल्म थोड़ा better है, क्या हो रहा है? तो उसको लेके आओ यहाँ ना. So you bring Prabhu Deva here, you bring that cameraman here, you bring that person. So you started doing it, and the South in that suddenly I said that, oh, we don't have heroines, our films can run there, so bring a heroine from there. So we are bringing North Indian heroines here. So there is no kind of regional specificity or kind of say, I think there's some regional pride. There is just an exchange of ideas, in some way it connects. So when you look at a film like Sairat, you feel that the entire musical score is an ode to Ilayaraja.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's so much influenced by that, and so individually people get inspired by um, music or the visual style or the choreography in some style, and you cross fertilize. So I think that's what is happening, and that resulted in another thing, that in Bombay, a lot of the cameramen were slightly older and they were taking a lot of time. And these South cameramen were seen as somebody fast and they would work quickly. So I think there was an economic factor on one side, and there was also, I mean, people like Santosh who came first. You know, Santosh had this great. I mean, he had done documentaries. He had gone to Arunachal Pradesh shot. He had done so many things. So he was able to, come on, let's shoot fast. Come on, let's shoot fast. You know, he was on a roll. You know, I mean, he had so much of energy to create that people were fascinated by, you know, people who are not sitting and saying, हाँ अच्छा थोड़े देर के बाद हम लेंगे, you know, and everybody starting shooting at 11:30, 12. अच्छा light तो सवेरे होता है. So you needed somebody to shout and say, come on, 6:30 shot लेने का है. The artists don't like you. But once it is commercially successful, then everybody say, ah, you better go and take the shot. So when Mani Ratnam calls for a shot, all artists will come. But if somebody else calls, they were not coming. But the beauty in India is that the best light is between, you know, 6 to 8:30. And then you got to wait for the evening light. So you're in color photography, if you're not going to expose in the morning, and if you're going to come and say, chalo, aaram se karenge, then you'll get top light pictures, everything looks the same. You know, and that practice sort of changed, and South India was seen as more disciplined. People were waking up in the morning and they'll, hey, whatever happens, get ready in the Ooty and be ready for you for shooting it. That lightman will be ready. Vanga sir, ready sir, eat idli, come on, let's shoot. You know, that kind of attitude was, I think, also responsible. So a lot of things, music, choreography, MTV on one side, Western classical music, then technology changing, and the fact that labs work better in South, all this resulted in a lot of good practice coming up.
Yeah, so so this is really great, because I really wanted to hear about this connect, because being a North Indian and not being much of watching cinema from other parts of the country, it's always been about where is it all coming from. But what's your take in terms of, let's say we had the cinema experience or connect what you talked about from the South, but what about I mean, you worked in such big films both in South as well as in Bombay film, coming from the East, let's say the Bengali cinema. Do you see that? What influences did you see there? If you want to, connect.
Yeah, I think, you see that the South was very influenced by Bengal, because I mean, way back in the 40s, New Theaters was the place where all the labs were. So when the cinema of the talkies were starting, people like M.S. Subbulakshmi would travel to Calcutta to shoot her films. So what was happening is, while you had a whole bunch of German professionals bringing in that kind of industrial approach to filming in Bombay talkies, and they were having a kind of absolute I mean, German expressionism means you actually need to show your light, you know. You're not trying to make the light invisible. So even in new theater, Devdas and all that, they would have more scenic work near lakes, trees, and things of that nature. And whether what Satyajit Ray and Subrata Mitra learned from Jean Renoir, I don't know what they did, but finally, when Subrata Mitra did, and Satyajit Ray did Patir Panchali, it was like, wow. I mean, like world class work. You know, I mean, for the first time, we were seeing something incredible. And it's not that people had not tried, you know, experiments before. I mean, you had Shantaram doing something which was, amazing. You had studios in Kolhapur, you know, putting out sets, and you also had a huge tradition of experimentation. But the cinema where it is coming from, which is not theatrical, which is textural, which is capturing nature, that sort of became what came out of the Bengal school, and that inspired a lot of people in the art cinema in Kerala. And a lot of the people who came out of Pune Film Institute got employment there. So, whether it's Adur Gopalakrishnan or, Aravindan's films, nature is very important there. And even in commercial cinema of Chemin, it was very important. So I think the idea of studio and artifice vis-a-vis nature and the real set, that I think there was something strong. So even when the Bengalis came to Bombay and they were making films, I remember, seeing films, you could actually see the Bengali influence. You would see in Amar Prem the way the river was shot, or you see there was a film which had that song Amanush Bana Ke Choda. There was some song where Uttam Kumar was acting. I remember I saw so many shots of the Hooghly and I was fascinated. My God, where is this river? What is happening? And as a little kid, I would see Hindi films and suddenly see the Bengali films had directors had a different, vibe to shooting the city and things like that. It was different from seeing Yadon Ki Barat with, films which were coming out of that. And that kind of Bengali architecture, the river, the Wada, I mean, or sorry, there's big feudal zamindars houses, and which you see so much in Sahib Bibir Gulam, and that you kind of really feel there was a very strong visual aesthetic, and a lot of the art directors, everybody had come from thing. So the great Bimal Roy, I mean, when he came, when Ritvik Ghatak felt that he had gone there, he wrote the script for Madhumati. So there was a lot of incredible talent coming back up and down from Bengal. I mean, I am the biggest fan of Salil Chaudhary music.
Yeah. Amit Mehra was talking about Guru Dutt. That's something which, if you want to talk about that, because, what influences did survive of Guru Dutt, because we all know what he was as a film person.
I think Guru Dutt, to me was an incredible influence, because I had worked with Sham Benegil, and later on I came to know more people from family, and I would always say, what do you know about Guru Dutt? What do you know about Guru Dutt? And so I was always very curious, because he was a filmmaker which had maximum impact for me as a thing. I mean, rest of Hindi cinema I saw, I enjoyed, but I didn't worship as much as I worshipped, Guru Dutt's films. And the idea that this man was a kind of a student in Calcutta who was not able to concentrate, and the family was desperately trying to put him into some kind of artistic training, and then he joining Uday Shankar's group and learning dancing. And he worked on that famous film of Uday Shankar, and when he worked on that, he also typed the script. So you can see in Kalpana the idea that an artist is trying to create something and the whole commercial world is against him. And he has planted that in the end of that script, which he wasn't directing, but he was only the assistant director. And then later on, you find that recurring motive of this poet whose work has become a piece of paper, wrapping paper, or the director who's now forgotten, or this continuous motive of the artist's struggle in human world, and to translate that into visuals was, I think, an incredible achievement. So that's where I feel the that strong, shaft of light that you see in Kagaz Ke Phool is, it's like literally saying, hey, this is not lighting. Watch the lighting, see it. It's like cutting across. Nothing shows you light in any Indian film as strongly as that image. There is no shying away. It's like a painter saying, damn it, why should I hide my brush stroke? So pachak, put the paint there, let me see it. So I mean, for somebody to take CinemaScope and do that, and then that kind of sense of music this man had, and poetry, and of course Wahida Rehman also made life even more beautiful to see. And even his other films like Mr. and Mrs. 55, and the more those kind of what can I call crime capers that he had made before he got into this, there was this underlying sense of pathos which sort of fitted in with the ghazal idea that I mean, you're not there today, and what am I going to do? This kind of longing of the soul, that somehow he captured that, and visually it was stunning. And there was, and to think that this man was acting also and managing to get this work from VK Murthy, and I mean, and then he had to die all of a sudden within 39. I'm completely in awe of Guru Dutt, and
Yeah.
I just think his films were the
That's,
best. To me,
uh,
the best Hindi film that, if I have, just if I could take one Hindi film with me to see, I would have been caught between Mother India and and Sahib Bir Gulam. But Sahib Bir Gulam, just because it has so much more script and so much more fun and music and all that.
yeah, wow. What I mean, we are kind of getting, pressed for time now. And, especially the panelists here, they have some really interesting questions. So I think let's try to open that. And also what I want to do is, because there are a lot of young, photographers or people who want to get into cinema business. I think they're very basic questions, but they all are looking forward to hearing from you. And because you teach also, so they would like to get in that space where, just the breakthrough, how that process works. So we can touch upon that also, which would be good, because I think young people do want to hear it.
Yeah. I'm just seeing some of the questions coming up, and I'm something regarding Satyajit Ray's Charulata was there. The man I completely admire in my life is Satyajit Ray. I mean, I cry very rarely, but I did cry when Satyajit Ray died, because I don't think there has been ever a person more talented than Ray. Because you can't be a typographer, you can't then also write script, and then you can also not really design your set, and then you can also not, I mean, how can you do everything? How can you also play keyboard? How can you also write music? I mean, he could do everything, and yet have that kind of subtlety and unpredictability. And Charulata is such a tender, brilliant film, but also was breaking grounds with the way it was shot. That swing sequence, even now, when we try, because I keep trying the swing sequence in all my films, it's just I'm obsessed by the swing because of the sequence from Charulata, I guess. And the way the lighting was done, and the way the film was shot, I think it is probably the best shot film in that era. And the art direction and the music and the whole execution of Charulata was something that we all learned and watched again and again from.
Right.
I forgot what you were asking me.
So we'll get that part later. What I want to do is, now let's speak about what you were saying, what we spoke earlier on, your own cinema now. And I really was fascinated by some of these things which you had constructed in films like Guru or Bombay, for example. So can we just talk about that, because I think a lot of people want to know how a film like that gets put together.
Yeah, so I can share you some of the portfolio of I mean, I just managed to pick something out of YouTube because I don't have any of these pictures with me. But all the same we can have. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, so I mean, these images from Bombay are before the kind of thing strikes. So this kind of tender love of the staircase, the wooden staircase, the girl watching this, this, and then when you have to use the landscape and use it strongly, I think in some ways I was very influenced by Grigory Kozintsev's Hamlet, I mean, which I had seen once in the institute. And I couldn't sleep for like 2 or 3 days. I was haunted by those images. And years later, I saw Grigory Kozintsev's film, I think some 3 years back. And I realized that so many of the shots out of this shooting are inspired, because that was also set in a maritime fort and it was in murky light. So I think there was a lot of resonance of a person torn inside the kind of the fort wall, and this kind of never-ending composition, and this and actually shooting in the rain without an 85 filter, and just bravely going and getting the blue in. And most of the time, you try to remove the blue by putting 85 filter, and then somehow the rain doesn't look cold, and the greens sort of change in some way. I mean, these were things that we used to do. So I used to, whenever that light used to get really cloudy and thing, I used to put a neutral density filter, but remove the 85 filter, and try to get that cold, feeling in. And then this tenderness of these two people coming together, the what's happening in the village, and the children being born, um, and then the naturalism, and then suddenly this kind of handheldy documentary kind of feel which is coming in. This kind of image which you sort of construct because you got like 10 minutes to do the shot. So this is planned, and your people are walking on Nariman Point, and you just come and click second, and there's a man with paint who says, just lie down there, fat, take this thing, start off a fire here, put something here, and take one shot, and now scoot. Because you people are going to ask questions. So we only got 10 to 15 minutes to take the shot, but it's a setup shot based on the visual memory of what we have seen in the news photographers have shot,
Yes.
and this shaft, I mean, like, which is screeching in inside this.
Rajiv sir, I'm sorry. You have forgotten to share your screen, so we are not seeing the images.
Oh, you're not seeing the images? Oh
No,
my
no, no,
God.
no.
What am I
Yeah.
talking? I'm so sorry. Oh, okay. Just a minute. Okay. Is that fine?
No,
Can
we still don't see it.
okay, what have I done wrong? Now I'm still not seeing.
No, I
No,
think you just need to share your screen. You're still not sharing your screen.
Yeah. Is it coming up now?
No.
Whoa. What has happened? Jesus. Why is that happening? Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now we see your desktop. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. I'm sorry for this incredibly stupid thing of mine. Yeah. So as I said, we're starting with this village, and what the life is, and there are two young lovers sort of meeting, and then the strong fort. I mean, the fort is kind of the symbolic of what they are kind of opposed, and then the rain and the storm, and then coming to the city, they kind of making their life changing there. So I think that aspect is to me, uh, this the childbirth and this kind of naturalism of their life. And then comes this, what is happening to the world getting torn apart. Yeah, I mean, this is the image that I was talking about. Why am I not able to stop it? Sorry, just a minute. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. So, can you see this cursor there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry. So, yeah. So I think this kind of domesticity, being broken by, and when you're shooting a riot, you're shooting from inside the police thing, and you're trying to get different points of view, because the shoot can get repetitive, because you're shooting almost 2 months of riots, I mean 30 days of riots, and so you try to communicate in some ways the chaos that was happening there, and then you have just 1 or 2 days in which you shoot your real pictures in Bombay. That's what I'm saying. You just get something like 10, 15 minutes to take each shot, and then you recreate that and sort of get a sense. Though this film is being shot in Chennai, you want to get a feeling that it's happening in Bombay. So how does one, achieve that? So this idea of having a shaft coming in, this is also my ode to some way to Guru Dutt, and that that there are two, man and woman, divided by this huge diagonal strike which is coming in, and we didn't have a light so strong enough. So what we did is we managed to put a mirror on a building opposite and raised it, and actually put uh, the beam from there, So if you actually see the film, you can see the beam just shaking a bit even now, because we could not, there was wind and we could not keep the mirror absolutely steady. So that's a kind of a thing. And then, the place is wrecked, and the family finally unites. So this kind of, it's not a pretty image. You're letting the flare, and you're letting the image downgrade, and also I was using my Steadicam skills to the limit, and also my handheld skills. So I think one of the things that why made Bombay what it is camera operation and movement. Because you just, if you keep things static and you look at it, somehow it feels like it was staged. So there is need to move, but you just keep moving it chaotically, then it doesn't build an emotion. So all the time when you're looking through the camera, are you getting the emotion? Are you getting the emotion? That's the crucial question that you're asking. And even when there's a hugging, even when there's storm and this thing, you must still see the two artists' face, and you must still feel the eyes, and you should be able to get a tear swell inside you. I mean, if you don't shoot it right, it's not going to come. So that makes a story like a Bombay, which is, we are shooting in Chennai but trying to create work in some ways. And then when I would collaborate with Mr. Maniratnam, and we had to go to Turkey to shoot, and here what happens is that allegedly Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani had gone to Aden and worked. We can't go to Aden because there's a war going on in Yemen, so we decided to go to Turkey. So we went to Turkey, and that's when I studied the work of Ara Güler, and the photographer who's like the Cartier-Bresson of Turkey. And you actually see that though there are trees, the trees are not that tall. They're not as big as in India, but they cut the sky. The minarets are always cutting the sky. So you actually try to stage your action in some way that you can communicate that motive into your um, so once you establish that can I say that motive of the sky with the minarets, then when you come to India, boom, it's the trees. So Ara Güler came to India, and he actually shot in Tamil Nadu. And when he had shot in Tamil Nadu, he had this big lake with, palm trees there. So I said, wow, when you see his pictures, in Turkey, you're seeing the sky getting cut by minarets, but in India, it's trees. So I wanted to make sure that every shot in the village had to have trees in it. So I was like, I tried to, whatever I do, just trying to move it around that. And then we had this train coming in, so I wanted to, always wanted to do a great day for night shoot. So we had this nice steam engine. So um, the evening light was coming and hitting this thing before. So it was around 11 o'clock. So we had this backlight, and the train came, and we sort of lit it up with stronger lights. And then in post, we kind of moved up the light and added a light to the what do you call to the train, and then we could do that thing. And then the reverse direction, we shot it with the thing. This was another kind of important visual because uh, I mean, again, Gurubai's character was meeting this person who is running the newspaper, and the meeting has to be in. They said, "Where do we meet?" So they were saying that, "Oh, we can shoot in Ballad Estate. We can do this." I said, "Come on, there's no sky in Ballad Estate. There's just some buildings, and there are too many stupid trees closing it, and not you can't even see the buildings probably. And every film is shot there. Let's do something better, you know." So we said, "Let's shoot Marine Drive, 1950s." So people are looking, "What, are you gone mad? Or what's going to happen? You know, how will you do it?" So we said, "Then we'll call a special effects person and see how it can be done." So we shot this road in Pondicherry, and we created all the properties and had, I mean, the sequence there. And it was shot in morning light in Pondicherry. And the backgrounds were all shot in evening light in Marine Drive. And then we had some pictures which we had from the 60s when those buildings which were not there, we erased it in post and put it back here. So it is, and there is movement in it. It's so you can see the, so all the shots were shot like as though we, I think, just don't worry, let's just shoot it like the way we would normally shoot it. And we shot it and then went back to, uh, Marine Drive and placed the cameras and mimicked the movements, not the movement, but the static thing. And then we moved it in post. So the cars you see are all from Pondicherry, but the coconut trees and the buildings are from Bombay. And it's just that the light angle is matched. So because you match the angle, you can actually pull off the shot. You know? So it's important to have that sense that you are in that place, and then you need to communicate that 50s kind of thing. And of course, inside this also you have your love song, and and then you have the breakup, and so you are looking at trying to you know create visuals which give you a slightly rural feel. There's an urban feel, but it should not be exactly the same as what you saw in. And then this uh, aging and how these two get in, and then this final confrontation with the establishment, which is like something like from JFK, or this kind of what can I say, commission, truth commission, which is listening to it. So it has a kind of an American feel to it. I mean, I don't think there is any truth commission in India, which it looks like. So we had taken one of these halls, which was kind of a speaking hall in Chennai, in the heart of you know near the station, and then we put up the set, and then we lit this up and managed to, but then do a lot of swish pans, and again, camera operation, I think is very important, and we can't underestimate. And this is the next one is the last film that I shot with Money, which is we shot it in film, and it was about a young boy growing up in the sea, and what happens to the kind of village life, and a boy going out to sea, and then his process of growing up in a Christian village, and um, that the idea of a kind of a Blue Lagoon kind of a thing followed in a very strong Christian thing, and finally, a big confrontation between good and evil in a storm, which is like Cape Fear kind of a thing, one of the ideas that we had for that. So there are different kinds of influences come and we try to execute them.
Yeah. And what about, let's talk about a little bit about before we open up to the panelists, the entire connect to working with these directors. Obviously, it's a connect of, what their script and their mind is, and you are the one who is putting it out there. How does that work largely? I mean, I know everybody has a different way of connecting.
I think, you got to be really lucky. You need to get a director. The director has to be wanting to do something different. He has to trust you. And most importantly, as somebody else was discussing, that film has to be successful. Unfortunately, in films, if your film is not successful, you can do the best cinematography, but it doesn't work. So the film becomes successful then, and then if the national media gets some attention, then it's no more a regional film and it becomes something bigger. But that is not completely in your hand, and you have to have the modesty to understand that it's because somebody else wrote the script and somebody else is funding it. So you are really part of a project where so many people are putting their time and effort to get. So you need to get along with people, and you need to be able to stand up and fight for what you think is really important in the visual, but at the same time not be obnoxious and make a fool of yourself, just being irritable all the time on the set. And that is a lot of cinematographers can fall into that trap. I am not a person who can advocate and say, hey, this is the way to do it, because I haven't done that many films. I've mainly worked with Mani Ratnam, 3 films, and the others are, for some other directors. But I've only directed after that. So I'm not a good one at giving gyan and advice on how to get along with people and how to do it. I mean, boss, there is a lot of luck involved in being in the right film at the right time and, doing that. And if somebody were to tell you that, no, man, it's all what you create, it's bullshit. Because films is so much, it has to capture the zeitgeist of that moment, your music, your film, your actor, your story, everything has to sort of come together. And then if you're lucky to be, then you find a new way of shooting it. And then hopefully people will remember you after some time. Otherwise, you're a technician. They won't even think about you. So
Right.
it's tough. But I think, a lot of film people, cinematographers especially, when they don't do films, they become very bitter and they get irritable and they kind of say that, I mean, mera picture nahi chali, main kya karu, and they get upset. And I feel you shouldn't be so upset about these things because, it's not all in your control. What you can do is to think that you're an artist. And I always tell people, like, my mother is 79 years old and she used to sing classical music a bit and she sings for films. But she would practice, she still practices every day, hoping that, A.R. Rahman will call her and she can sing. That riyaz is there, and as photographers and as, cinematographers, and the more with cinematography, because you need this whole unit, you need that 100 odd people, you need that star, you need that generator, and only then you can, work. Should not be the case. You have to work. You have to keep on looking. Your eyes have to see, And I think for that, still photography is so important, and it's a very personal way of looking at it, So wherever I go, I try to carry a camera and try to take some pictures. Sometimes, I like to go back and do some black and whites, and now it's a real problem developing it, but I still like it. And even if you can't do anything, even with your iPhone, you better shoot well and you keep trying it. So if you want, I can show you some of mine.
Yeah, I would like
Still,
to see your stuff, please.
to all these great still photographers, please. This is what I like, and I'm just sorry. No.
Tarun is here.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
No, 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 not yet.
No, not yet.
Yeah, now we do. Now we do. Yes.
Okay, so I'll just move it into a slideshow. Yeah, so I mean, Kish was going on some recce sometime for making some film on AIDS awareness, and so I had to uh, just go and ask a circus where they will give me permission. So you end up going and taking some pictures in black and white tracks, which I just discovered, like 5 to 6 days back during the lockdown. Something had been scanned and kept, and nobody had bothered to do it. I have nothing to do, so I come to the office and sit alone. There's nobody else. I make my coffee and I drink, and I look through and suddenly found these pictures. I said, "Not bad, Harry. इसको तो भी print करना ही पड़ेगा." So then I also like to, do some, landscape work and come back. Unfortunately, it's come back to this. I kind of do some, when you go to Andamans, you shoot something, and then you are on a location like Mont Saint Michel, you want to find a new way of shooting Mont Saint Michel, and it's often short. So I was driving around and suddenly I found some trees. I said, stop, 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 stop. And the car, the Frenchman said, Jojo, you can't do this. It's not right. You can't jump off the car like that. No, no. But I said, something was nice there. So I ran out of the car and ran backwards because I just felt I saw it for a brief flash that I could see the spire between the trees. And so just like you're giving a new interpretation to that. Then you want to also try to figure out how else to shoot it. Then you generally walk around the neighborhood and try to see, I mean, just shooting pictures of places that sort of fascinate you. Architecture is a thing that I would have probably liked to do if I didn't do anything else. I'm so fascinated by architecture. And this is Mani Ratnam on the recce on top of the mosque. I mean, there's a kind of a market at Istanbul where they shoot all these actions. Now they've come in, I think, some James Bond film and all that. So he was, we were recceing, so we just took some pictures there. There are some stills from the film. So, when you try to recreate the 50s and 60s, some way along this great devotion for Guru that comes in and try to blast this beam through. And this beam was done like what it was discussed, that you put a mirror and you bounce a 10K light, 12K light onto that, and then you get the beam through, because it was an outdoor set. So it's like, this was a real location. So, you're throwing light from outside, and this is some, it's all part of these old stills that I just discovered. So they've not been cleaned or nothing there. It has just been scanned and put in a negative. I need to now professionally scan it. I do like tri-X-pan, and I very much. And whenever I walk around, they stop and I said, take my FM2 with me. And I really like that FM2 very much. And it sort of makes life very much simpler when you're looking through that. This is my wife and 2 kids, so which we had just found this tapestry very interesting. And now I do a bit of uh, just observing tigers, and go wherever you can and try to see them as portraits. And I go to, sometimes when you hear there's a cattle fair, you just go, and I find Indian cows very beautiful, and so odd, so as odd kind of things. It's not, it's just trying to not wait just for a film to do work, but Just try it. Otherwise, you keep going on holidays and you say, shit, am I taking these holiday pictures? It's so stupid, So you want to keep trying, and then you realize that suddenly when you go out, I invariably end up shooting vertical all the time.
Oh, really? Okay. Which brings me to a very important thing. We were talking about cinema. One was this Assam thing, what you were saying,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
another thing which I would really like, viewers to hear about the wedding photographer who's done this brilliant film. You can just touch upon that.
Yeah, so I think while we all feel very strongly. The last sometimes I look at the Cuddle which was shot on film, and the quality is so brilliant, and you say, shit, man. There's something about film, especially in the sky, which was so good, and we lament for that. And but digital, has opened up things in such a way that it has, nobody has to come to Chennai and hang around. Otherwise, these people from Assam used to come, they used to stay 3 months to finish their films here. And people, just the whole idea of going to a lab and doing all this was so difficult. But now, you can just have it in your Mac, and you can, few people could come together and they can make a film, and it can be really good. So there is nothing like, you have to, so the digital means that a lot of people are shooting now without light meters, and it's like, what on earth are you guys doing? Like, how will you match it? Like, it gets my blood boiling, But they're getting good visuals. They are telling stories. So I think what digital has done is that it has liberated people from, some kind of technical knowledge, and you don't need knowledge, but you need only a dil now. You just need a story in your heart, and you can actually start telling it. So I found this story very fascinating, that I had gone to Kerala and I was watching some films, and I saw this film called Kumbalangi Nights, and I just loved it. I loved the way it was shot, and it was a young cameraman called Shaiju Khalid. And then I started finding about him, and I found that he has a guru called Samir Tahir. And these guys used to work with wedding photographers as wedding photographers, and they worked in various things. And slowly and steadily, their aesthetic has developed, and they're doing such good work. Of course, Rajiv Ravi has been a huge influence on all of them, and his work in Tonti Mudalum Drikshashi is very good. And then Samir Tahir and Shaiju Ghale together make a film like Sudani from Nigeria. It's about a Nigerian guy who's playing football, and it's such a humanist tale. So, what I'm trying to tell you is that the medium is becoming so accessible to so many people. You don't have to go through an institute in order to do something. You just need a heart. You're there. But what was incredible is to see the work coming out of Assam, Rima Das. The kind of films that she's making is so remarkable. And I think there's been a great democratization of the form. And recently, I saw a documentary. It was by two people from Chennai, and it's called Up, Down, and Sideways. It's a documentary by Anushka Meenakshi and Ishwar Srikumar. It's about rice farming in Nagaland and how people sing in harmonies while they are, working on the fields. And these guys from Chennai, just one guy operating the camera, and then two people have gone and made this documentary. It is so beautiful. So I think today with digital, the medium is opening up so much, and there is a danger of sameness. There is a danger of people not taking the medium as seriously as what was taken. But I think there are more voices, and there's something to look forward to. And it is, I feel it's a very positive sign that, people from anywhere can make a great film today. And that's something which is remarkable, which is happening right in front of us.
Yeah, I think, I believe that, there's like people keep saying, especially people who come from analog life, especially you see that in still photography, that, there's just everybody's become a photographer. But I think the good news is that, today an accountant can become a photographer. You don't need to have the mechanics behind it anymore. And like you said, I think it's so much to do with, finding your voice. And in that noise, if you have the right kind of voice, there are enough people to see it, and there are chances of being seen. Earlier you had to go through the only through the mechanics of being a film photographer, whatever that was, to operate that device what we have between whatever you're seeing and behind it. So we are running short on time. This was really brilliant.
I
Let's
have a question.
Yeah,
yeah
I mean,
yeah
Hi.
let's do this. Yeah.
Well, it's not actually a question because you touched Guru Dutt, and I mean, we have a very common fascination about Guru Dutt. Yeah. So it's not only about the Guru Dutt, and I will take from the same question what Samar has put in just some time back about the director and cinematographer relationship. And we normally don't talk about, or very often we don't talk about V.K. Murthy, the
yeah,
cinematographer. Yeah. So, and this shaft of light, and this is the most famous scene in Kagaz Ke Phool. And but the film, what you were talking about, Saab Bibi or Ghulam, and the song sequence there is especially in the song Sathiya Aaj Mujhe Neend Nahi Aayegi. No,
the
the other one.
Pankha.
Yeah, the Pankha one is also there, but the in the same song, the Pankha is also there where the light comes and goes. The Pankha comes and goes and out. But the most important part, what I notice in that song is, which is incredible, the main dancer is in the light. The
That's
code,
what.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was,
exactly.
that's because of the pankha, because she's moving forward, and what I heard is that the person is moving forward. The main person was in light, and the four other people are in shadow.
Four other people are in shadow, but the third layer of the musicians
Hmm.
were again in the light. But the fourth layer of the audience, the light was coming in and out, coming, going in and out. So, and he
What
did
I
the top lighting.
what I heard, and I asked Nasreen Muni Kabir, and she had
Yeah,
supposedly talked to him
yeah,
sometime,
yeah.
was that this I was racking my brain and saying, how on earth
I'm
was this?
still doing that. Please tell me. Yeah.
Because the beauty in that is the camera starts tracking back, and there is a sequence where she's dancing and she's moving forward, and the camera is tracking back, and she's in light, background dancers and backlight. I will get screwed even.
Background dancers are in silhouette.
Silhouette, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what. If the silhouette is, how is the silhouette moving? How is this light moving? So I thought for a long while that they had a track and trolley on the tarafa and they were moving the light. I thought like that. Then I heard from somebody that no, the pankha was moving. It accident. They realized that you could synchronize the pankha with that, and that's how they managed. It was like a big cutter moving.
Yeah, and incredible. There are four layers in that, and most of the song has been shot from the top angle.
Yeah,
The camera is on the top angle, and then there is one dancer in the center, and she's surrounded by three, four co-dancers, and then the musicians are again in the light.
yeah.
Co-dancers are in silhouette, main dancer is in light. So it's like going even odd, and then the audience are in light. My question was, putting this into context, how important the relationship of the director as well as the cinematographer is, and you briefly touched it, because Abrar Alvi, the man who directed Sahab Bibi or Ghulam, he was the scriptwriter, as we all know, for Guru Dutt, and he wrote a wonderful book, and that's where I read about the bio of Guru Dutt. Incredible book, and his passion for Guru Dutt's passion for photography as well as for cinematography, where he searched for Sahab Bibi or Ghulam. He searched for 150 lens for 6 months in Europe. He stationed there in Europe, and he wanted that one lens in Germany. So for 6 months he was there, and there's a full chapter. I would really recommend everyone to read that book on Guru Dutt by Abrar Alvi, where he talks about his passion for cinematography. But the point is, after Guru Dutt, till the time Guru Dutt was there, VK Murthy was like giving one after the other. But the moment Guru Dutt passed away, there was a huge change in VK Murthy's cinematography.
Hmm.
So is it the director in that case who was commanding, like in the Subrata also? I don't know whether he has done something.
He did good work even after, after leaving Satyajit Ray, his work in, Shakespeare Wala and all is pretty strong. But I understand what you're saying now, because I
But in
completely.
VK Murthy's case, it was not the case.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, Shyam Babu used him in two or three films, and tried to get him back, because it wasn't that V.K. Moti had retired. I mean, his Shishyas like Govind Lenlani and all that
Yeah.
already come. As I told you, that is that brief period wherein which, you see, whether we like it or not, that particular kind of cinematography was very strongly influenced by the Hershwig and all those people who came in. That is, you are lighting it for the front. It's like lighting on stage. So
Yeah.
you can either light from the sides or you can light from the front. So what was happening is most people were lighting from the front. So I remember, I think what is that? Sudeep was telling about it. Then when he went to meet Ashok Mehta, somebody, he told him that is it commercial cinema or is it?
Yeah, I read.
You
I read
light
about
your
it.
actress.
Such a wonderful thing.
So I think this whole idea of backlight and thing was really obsessing people, and they didn't really know how to use soft light in a big way. So the moment you put soft light, it was just killing the contrast. So getting soft light and contrast and keeping it under control. And then what happened is these art directors for a brief while didn't know what to do. So because color aa gaya, they red lagao, wahan lagao, and it was like chaos. And it's just so difficult to take a good picture in color. It's 10 times easier to take a good picture in black and white
You're
because
true. You're so true.
irritating color is not there. I mean, to make an art director understand, hey, I want green, but I don't want capsicum green, but I want a cucumber green. I want a mavila. I want the tender mango leaves color. I mean, this is where your color sense is going to come to, and then you have to collaborate with your costume designer who is listening to the artist and who chamcha-fying the artist, and you need to somehow convince the artist that, actually, purple doesn't look good on your face. Wine looks better. Ah, really? So she now believes that, says that. And most of these cameramen would go and tell the artist, तुम्हारा left hand side ठीक नहीं, तुम्हारा right hand side ठीक नहीं. And I've had a situation where two heroines are coming to speak and they have to sing together looking at each. Both are turning and looking at that, like as though they were Gemini Studios, two kids who are playing. They don't want to face each other, I'm like, damn it, there's nothing like that. Yeah, come on, yeah, stop it. Some old man has told you that in your childhood and you're traumatized and you're believing you are beautiful anyway. You have to sort of, play this game all the time and manipulate a lot of people. And some cinematographers lose their patience. They cannot do it, And I think the sense that, when people start calling you Guruji, Ji, giving you thing, तो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो तुम्हारा दिमाग में चले जाता है. And you also think that you are no more Rajiv, you're Rajiv Ji. कोई नहीं. If anybody calls you Ji, I think you should cut it off, and you should just
Actually.
be there, because you have to sort of deal with 10 people to get your picture looking good. I mean, the costume has to be good, the color has to be good, and the movement has to be good. And most importantly, you do this perfect movement, and that bloody editor comes and cuts it to the wrong place, gone. Your bloody whole visual rhythm is gone for a toss, So you got to keep telling everybody in the unit that how great they are. Just to make sure that you have your card to pull out on them, saying, the boss, oh, 4 frame, thoda, let it come and stay and then cut. You want that currency, others, they say, why are you interfering in my work? You think I don't know? Do I come and tell you how to shoot? They will tell you all that. So in order to do that, you need to, as they call in Kannada, solpa adjust madi. Like that, you have to maneuver your way around the set. And I think it's difficult here. I mean, cinematography.
Yeah. Rajiv, we've got Tarun. Tarun, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi Rajiv. I just wanted to ask you about two movies which blew my mind in like 2000s were Emeros Peros and City of Gods. They both were very gripping, very gritty. At the same time, if you see the cinema, you feel like there was an invisible camera. There was no cameraman at all. It's like it was as if the scene was happening and an invisible camera was just capturing the whole thing and the movement, and especially because you were trained with someone who actually created a steady cam. Just wanted to know your views on this movement of the camera in those two movies, if you
Yeah,
noticed.
absolutely. I think you hit the nail on those two films. Both of them were, and the whole Mexican wave which came in. I think there were two or three things that came in. I think they were shooting in very real setting. They were not shooting in setty setting. So when you go inside a real setting, you're shooting working with wide angles, and when you're doing wide angles, uh, you have a certain intimacy to the the camera is very close to the person. So if you notice the way he shoots inside the house of the young chap who is worried that his sister-in-law is getting whacked by, that's shot in a slightly different manner in the way he's shooting the editor who leaves his wife and kid for this model. And there the camera is not so close, it's much further away, so you feel the constriction of space there, and then you feel a little bit of leeway, and then you come to this old man who is sort of living with all the stray dogs. See, the thing is, even in their script, they have got something which is very interesting. It is got a singular thread running all through, and the singular
Absolutely.
thread is Christianity and Christian ideology. The idea seems to be that every one of you fuck around with the institution of marriage, then you're screwed. So what happens is a young chap wants to save his sister-in-law, but ends up interfering in that marriage. So what does she do? She screws him and takes away the money and goes away with the guy who's beating him. And this chap who leaves his wife and goes for the younger person is left with a lady who's a cripple. The model becomes a cripple and she's a neurotic woman and he's trying to call back. And the other man who left everything for ideology is now sitting with stray dogs and, is been a recluse and he's become a gun on hire. So when you do all this, they have very strong sense of handheld and movement. So there is a kind of a thing of small movements. This thing, this idea of this frozen camera where people are, you're shooting the action. The cameraman is really, operating and doing a lot. And I felt that, in one Indian film, when I saw it, I felt that in Nirja. That film, there was a sequence inside, and there was a Pomeranian dog, and I told that to Mitesh. I mean, there was a movement where he tilted down at the right moment that the Pomeranian was moving around inside, and it broke my heart. It is the performance is the Pomeranian doesn't know what it's doing. But the way the camera moved at the right movement, camera movement can actually really create emotion. And the Mexicans have perfected that. Wide angle, getting close, and shooting in almost available light kind of a thing. And not trying to shoot in a set or making a set as close in dimension as the real world. That I think has made. So whenever we end up making a set, we make it 1.5 times with the real. And then it starts looking like an ad film set. Yeah.
Also,
Now
also I guess because Ameros Perros was directed, produced, even story was written by Alejandro Gonzalez, and he edited also the film. So I think he had all the freedom for him to kind of play around with the whole script actually.
All his three films of the trilogy were completely different from one another.
yeah, brilliant.
Rajiv,
The trilogy, the 21 grams, Babel, and Amares Perros, all three so different. Only thing was multiple stories coming together at one point and going.
Amoros Perros was the best because it had that
Oh yes, grit.
of unfaithful men and man's most faithful ally, the dog.
Yeah.
So whether it is the violent, Rottweiler or the fancy poodle or the stray dog, they are all, I mean, with that was so beautiful, that film. I really loved it, and we used to watch it regularly. And now this is the important thing. If you see a shot in that, and then you say, I want to do a shot like that, then that becomes copying. The question is to understand how that camera movement is coming out and what you can take out of it, and how do you make the film feel that it's unstable. I mean, there is a kind of instability to it, and the point of view is just moving a bit. So it's like an it gives you an animal-like feeling. This just live this little moment, and then all the ad films took on to that. After that,
Right.
It has
Rajiv,
all
we
the,
have
all the sorry, I just want to it. You know, if you see the movie, it looks like absolutely perfect with perfect mistakes also. You know, wherever the mistake is happening, he's just using it like a Zen master. He's using them. So it was beautiful.
Rajiv. Can we have Swapan, please?
yeah,
Hi, Rajiv.
yeah. I love your work.
Thank you so much. Likewise, please, of course.
Yeah,
So there
your
were,
father's work is also.
yeah, it's this. These are not questions, but just two, three, four things that I may want to say. Because first of all, thank you for the homage to Dad, because that was really touching. And also, I'm just amazed by the absolute, you know, knowledge of probably the history of India, of photography and in general. And it's so amazing. You suddenly make all of us still photographers feel quite nice, because we're always looking up to cinematographers and saying, okay, that's the next step, or how much more they're doing than us, in terms of we are working.
You guys are alone creating that magic. We have 300 people with us. We got sets, we got costumes, we got great stars and fantastic directors and stories, So you need humility to understand what one guy is creating and respect that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Now, when it's pointed out, you make us all want to walk on cloud nine. But it's just lovely to see a cinematographer and actually talking about the various genres of photography and the photographers that influenced you. So that I think was just something which was wonderful. Then after that, also, you've answered and you said so many things so eloquently, that I don't think there are many questions, but just there were one or two sentences that stuck with me, which I think it answers a lot of questions just by you saying it. And one thing was when you said this conflict between observing and interfering, which I think is such a it's such a prophecy, because it answers a lot of questions and a lot of things that as photographers also we are dealing with. And the second was this very interesting way of putting two words, which I thought cross fertilization is what you mentioned, which also I think is amazing. Because it could be inspiration, it could be like say staying away from copying somebody, but this fertilization, that the usage of words, I think was amazing to explain a lot of things that would be confusion in a visual storyteller's head. So thank you for that. I just really wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, further on from what you said, I feel cinematography is heavily influenced by the technology that comes, and technology gets utilized in news, immediately. Zoom lenses existed right in the beginning, but films, first when it was industrialized, somebody said, no, you cannot use zoom lenses. You have to dolly in, and there was this big Winton dolly. It looks great and the shots are great, absolutely fantastic. You had Mitchell and you had a parallax viewfinder. So what did you do? You ended up having centered compositions. And suddenly, when you have reflex viewfinder, and reflex viewfinder created for Adiflex for covering Hitler's war machine is becoming commercial production. And when it comes, suddenly Jules Jim, somebody can sit in the back of a cycle and you can feel the joy of young people cycling. That visual comes in. Now you look at it from the point of view at what is the contribution of sports photography to cinema? Huge. Because before sports photography came in, live television meant that there was a football game going on and people were shooting in 600 mm and 1200 mm. So suddenly Top Gun comes in and says, let's shoot on 1200 mm. I mean, 600. So you're taking a wildlife lens and then coming onto the cinema field to get the slow motion shot of a person walking. So, cinema is always getting influenced by what is happening in technology and what is available for you. And then how are you bringing those ideas in to get a better shot? The hero walks. You can put a dolly and shoot. You can shoot the back from a steady cam, or you can use an immobile rig and show his hatoda in his hand before he kills somebody. So you are going with him, and what has happened is progressively, as cameras have become smaller and as GoPros have come in, and as people are playing video game, you want to immerse in the action. So what happens is when somebody jumps from one building to the other, you had kept the camera here and said, jump. And then you put some, takiya here so that he doesn't fall inside it. Then suddenly you say, no, man, that's a shot liya hai. Tum kuch dusra karna hai. So what happens? This guy jumps, you want to jump with him. So then you put a rope, wire rope, and you start moving it. What are you doing? Basically, you are seeing that shot on a game video and you want that excitement of jumping from one place to the other. So cinematographers are junkies for this experience. So if you become, fixed in and you learn, and the majority of cinema people have one problem. When I was young, I was working with, LV Prasad Productions, and once the Steadicam was fixed, and Mr. LV Prasad had retired, but he wanted to act, so he had written a scene and he wanted to act in front of it, and I had to shoot it. So we had rehearsed it, and it was there. And the day we are going to shoot, he said, we'll have some lights. So I got the lighting done. I don't know, somehow this news spread in Madras. And the day we were shooting, one coconut came. I said, why is this coconut? And then when one Karpuram came, and they were doing puja. And I turned around and looked. Like all those big directors with their white and white 555. There were some 8 of those Telugu directors standing there. मेरा तो फटी ये क्या इनको क्यों लेके आया? We are doing a test shoot with this, and LV Prasad Saab is there, and suddenly my hands started shivering because some of them were, people who had done big blockbusters. They had come to see LV Prasad act. So I was really scared. So LV Prasad came and said, "What happened, Rajiv?" No, I'm just worried about this cable. Why are you worried? No, I'm just getting nervous because those people are there. Rajiv, don't worry. Those people who are there, they only studied 6 months when they came into the industry. And after that, they keep repeating the same thing. You studied for 3 years. So don't worry. You're better. Go do it. It symbolizes this thing. When you come into the field, you learn a few things. Then you keep on doing the same thing again and again. You stop growing. You've got to try and learn as much. GoPro is as important to you as understanding what a swing back is and what a line off is and why is perspective correction important. You want to know that. You have to be curious always. And
so it's yeah, because you say this, I don't know if you've seen the documentary on James Nachway shot by himself, the war photographer.
No, I haven't.
No, it's called The War Photographer, and it I think it won an Oscar also, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And it's shot by him himself.
Wow.
So when you talk about this absolute miniature cameras, so in his backpack he had this one little wire with I don't know, it's almost like what
Like
they were
magic
doing,
arm.
microscopies or whatever. So the moment he used to shoot, and it was so beautifully framed because all you see is hand and what he's shooting.
My God.
So his finger is moving so fast, changing the shutter speed and the
You
f-stop.
can see the change of the shutter speed on the LCD.
You can see the shutter speeds and the f-stop changing. And then you're seeing him shoot.
Where is this documentary? I can see it.
It's on YouTube.
It could be on YouTube, yeah.
It's on YouTube.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So the
It's
thing
called
is,
The War Photographer.
yeah. So the thing is, you're seeing what he's shooting, and some of those images have become iconic images already. So you're seeing the actual moment when he's clicking
When
and
he's
how
shooting
fast
the
his finger is moving. So whether he's deciding to shoot at 250 or 3.5 or go on to an f8 at 30th, and there that miniature thing really comes into play. And when he's getting tear gassed, the camera's on and he's down trying to protect himself. And these are like small little rigs popping out of his.
There is another small rig which is coming from below the camera.
And
Like
he decides when he wants to shift the rig up or down.
Yeah, and
What
it's
amazing.
filming him.
Yeah, and it's all
filming.
about portability and shooting the whole thing. So I think it's something we'd love to see.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Exactly something that you just spoke about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, one of the things that I do feel amongst all you still photographers, is that the difference between still photography and cinematography is coming down, because, there's going to be a convergence, and shortly all cameras are going to be able to give the same kind of results, like just what you said about DSLR. You're going to have 4K, full resolution coming out. And once that happens, I think, from taking a still image to actually moving it and editing it, and everything is possible on a laptop. You may see a lot more still photographers coming into cinematography. The point, what is important is, the whole process of being an apprentice to a DOP is, okay, how many lights you want, sir? Okay, I'll get this thing done. I can after some time manage to go around operating his camera, and it's about a higher version of a gaffer. But what it doesn't teach you is that you need to have your own eye. You need to write, you need to read, you need to look, you need to have a voice. If you don't have a voice, I mean, it's like saying that you are on TikTok all the time and you're pretending to be somebody else. But to have your own voice, to be able to bring a song come alive, I think the same thing applies to cinematography. You need to have your own idiosyncrasies, good, whatever it is, but you need to have your voice.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
I was just thinking, can we have Sudeep or Anil speak, because it'll be nice to hear. You guys come from that specific discipline. So I don't know. Do you have anything to say, Sudeep? Would you want to add?
I keep talking to Rajiv all the time.
Let us hear it what it is.
Give us more
No,
insight. What
it
you
was
keep
fabulous. I
talking
mean, I've been very privileged to hear Rajiv and get these discourses. But I'm so happy that the stuff that Rajiv said on the regional influences and like the whole history of photography, it was phenomenal session. I mean, this is
It's
absolutely
been an amazing
how a
session.
masterclass should be. I mean, fascinating, really.
No, you're so right. In fact, when Rajiv and whenever we were talking about, and I was just fascinated because typically when you have a talk, I suffer very majorly with that myself. You talk about your work and you give all the context around it, but the way you were, Rajiv, you started talking about photography and the history of it, and as Swapan said, all of a sudden we feel very important because otherwise you're like, okay, film guy, man, you're just a still guy in the middle of it.
Yeah, no, this wisdom, this understanding, this is something you rarely get. So I'm sure it must have been a really fascinating session for everybody. I mean,
Sorry, Tarun has one more question. You can just do that, please.
I just thought that we've been talking so much about cinema, and it'll be such a shame if we are not talking about In the Mood for Love.
Oh.
So I just wanted to know your point of view about that.
It
Just
is
talk about
so
that.
beautiful. I mean, like you look at that man's work, and then have you seen his still photographs about the bulbs that he has made?
Yeah,
He did an exhibition of, he just shoots lamps.
Yeah.
And he said a very important thing which sort of fascinated me very much, that he says, I don't light up because Wong Kar-wai doesn't have a scene till he's in a set. So Wong Kar-wai has a certain idea, and in that there's a master class or something. There's a book in that he says that he wants a set, and he
Yeah.
wants to feel the set. So he walks around and he's worried about how the costume is, and basically they go onto a set in the night, and then they are creating this work. So when it comes to lighting, one of the things he does is that he says, I need to have a source of light in my frame. So you will notice in all his night work, he doesn't shy away from putting a source right in. What we do is when we put a source, usko wo butter paper lagao, or you put a dimmer and usko dabao. He is not dabbing. His top sa is coming there. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa sa. He's up. That he is fixed. After that, he's bringing all the other notes down. So his idea of a night is very much like what Subrata is saying. In the night, your first top sur is which is your highest note, and then work downwards to that. Into the darkness and things.
Oh,
So his work is so poetic. That film is so good, and it's there are a couple of films which have really fascinated me. One is In the Mood for Love. The other one is this um, Iranian film, The Separation.
Oh,
yes.
These
wonderful.
two films, are anti-Western films. In the sense that whatever we learn, conflict hona chahiye. Script mein ye change hona, you must first act mein ye hona chahiye. Then you would have something else in a inciting incident. You know, conflict. So it's always good versus evil. But
Yeah.
suddenly you look at a separation. It's not good versus evil. It's good versus good. I mean, it's about what is dharma and what is right. I mean, the woman is equally right. She wants to make sure her daughter gets good education. And he's absolutely right. He wants to take care of his father who's lost his mind. And he says, but your father doesn't have a mind. He says, no, but I have to take care of it. That film is between the war that is happening between two really good human beings, and it's tearing a marriage apart. Similarly, in The Mood for Love, it's just two people who have been cheated, but the kind of thing that they could also cheat and that would have completely gone. So it's all about restraint and about yearning and the strange space of Hong Kong and being in hotel rooms and everything about that, from choosing the tie to that life. It was so beautiful. And you know what was amazing is the music. So you just have a shot of a person sitting and eating noodles. I mean, eating is a visceral activity, but when you do it completely alone in the night, it seems even more lonely. And then on top of it, when you put a Spanish song on top of it, it becomes more and more lonely. If you have just a person standing on the night and you go bum 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 bum, some comes inane stupid music, if you put, then that longing goes away. It's the
Yes.
same shot. You
Yes.
can just kill it by bad music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And melody and you know, a right kind of voice and a refrain. That's why you find so many films using old jazz tunes, you know, Nicole Simon or any of these kind of tunes are coming back, because it's just great melodies coming back, and they give you a kind of gravitas which is not there in the present, you know, which you're in this era where you unfriend somebody and you're out and in and you know, Tinder, you still want to fall in love and you still want to communicate that timelessness of the emotion. And music is so important. And when we shoot, we keep on hoping and dreaming that, oh, Rahman will do his work here, you know. Abhi kuch nahi karne ka hai. Just slowly tracking, that'll be enough, you know. I mean, that is what it makes cinema so beautiful. It's a collaborative art.
So beautiful to hear
Yeah.
about
Lovely.
when you're talking about lighting and you're saying it's on the top note and then you bring it down saregama. So
Lovely.
beautiful. You're so amazing. You know,
Yeah.
the way you're explaining everything. Thank you so much. Thanks.
I know you actually make it like poetry for us.
I know. Yes.
I'm actually hunting for questions to be able to continue this conversation,
No,
to
in
keep
fact,
chatting with you and get so much more from you.
you know,
Talking
as
about Majid Majidi and all these people, like this amazing, but he
Rajiv, as you said, camera movements create action. There was another film, Iranian film, Picnic.
I have not seen that. Yeah.
Oh my God, that whole film is all about camera movement, nothing else.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah,
whole film has
yeah,
been
yeah.
created for cinematography.
Yeah, because if you saw the what do you call? I mean, the work of Eric Gautier, or you know, the French people, and the people who shoot for Dadinia brothers. I mean, there's so many people who are so effortless in their camera work, and now because you know, I think camera operation was relegated and somebody else is operating, and you know, it's like saying that you know, you can do it robotically, but as Roger Deakins, he's like, I mean, what, 78 or 76, but he's still operating, because you know, you just need to tilt at the right time, and you know, it's like, you know, what can I say, it's like sculpture. You can't do sculpture with somebody else's hand, you know. It is a very tactile kind of a thing. I for one, I remember that
A wonderful analogy. Yeah.
before Guru, I kind of felt that, you know, there was a time where my compositions were like, I wasn't liking it, and so I was saying that what something is going wrong, and then I suddenly realized that between Bombay and Guru, the cameras had become heavier, and there were three people around the camera. So you want a camera to go up, suddenly you have three people's armpits and three people's sweat and many more cables coming to pull it. Okay, no, it's all right, you say. You cannot be okay. It has to be absolutely right. So when you take that lens out and you put it in the eye, you find that, and you look at it, And it's just this little movement, between left and right, little up, down, which gets you that right frame that we were talking about in Sebastian Selagoda's work, that, exact sense of space. And then this whole thing of negative space. I mean, why are we leaving that negative space? Why are we leaving that space on top? All these things are purely you and the lens. There is no director inside it. There should be no other cam. So I think that process of composing is the most sacred thing in the.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And once you get that right, then after that, you can do lighting. Other people can come in. Trolley can come in. All the armpits can come in. All the idiots, all the cables, everything can come in. But that moment of just fixing your lens, I think is personal. I think that is like an artist were to sing and get his sur right. If something goes wrong in that first composition, I kind of then struggle the whole day. It takes something 1 second, maybe in the third shot you get it right. Then, hoppa, you feel better. Then the shots start flowing better. One wrong shot in the morning, it is ruining your day. Then it's like it doesn't flow. The next cuts don't flow.
There's something I want to ask you. In still photography, the way the cameras are built, I see Swapan doing that a lot. He keeps his other eye open as well. The eye behind the viewfinder and the eye not behind the viewfinder is also opening, and it is anticipating what is going to happen.
That's the photojournalism.
So,
Yeah, that's the photojournalist.
that,
Most of the photojournalists.
how do you, as a cinematographer, as a DOP, have a practice somewhat like that to be able to anticipate what is going to happen?
Yeah, I think what has happened is that I'm sure, I think Sudeep and everybody will tell you that, the eyepiece was really sacred. I mean, like, we had to look through the eyepiece, and there was a time we were shooting CinemaScope, and you would actually see your picture in out of focus. Can you believe it? When we were shooting CinemaScope, all of Bombay, it's actually out of focus pictures. And then you have to de-squeeze it to actually get it in focus. But you still were looking at the eyepiece and there was no video assist, there was nothing. You had to just shoot and get it right. Now, then comes the stupid video assist, and then 3 different people start coming in. And after every shot, all the artists want to go and see. Artists are the most important people. They have to go and see it. And then the director has to see it. Then he says, thoda left, thoda right, and then they start irritating you with that comment. But in digital, what has happened is because there is this monitor on that, so people are not really putting their eye into the viewfinder. They're kind of looking at that all the time. So what that's happening is their look is going there. Their look is not here. You cannot see what's coming in, So you are aware of the tarafa and who's scratching his balls on the tarafa, but not actually around you. So I think it's very important that as a filmmaker, you go back to the eyepiece and do look, because as you rightly said, and what Sapon is saying, when you look at the pictures of Cartier-Bresson, especially the cyclist coming in with that curved stairs in Paris somewhere, he could not have got that in a position if he had seen it, because when you click, he could have already gone there. So in some ways, because it was a viewfinder camera, he was seeing it, he's saying, oh, now it's coming in, it'll be there, boom. So he was clicking before it reached that point. That same idea is required for cinema. We all the time are looking at the left to know when it's coming in. And we are panning, especially slow pans. We want to know, let the cutter not come in. So we are always aware of the edges. And that's one of the problems I have as a photographer shooting my own films. Most cinematographers, say that it's very difficult to deal with somebody else and I want to shoot. But for me, when I operate, I'm so worried about the left and right of my camera that I don't watch the artist's eyes. And if I don't watch the artist's eyes, I'm not doing justice to the direction. So I'm not able to do 2 things together at the same time. So either you watch the edges, which gives you the compositional tightness, or you watch the actor's eyes. And you can't make mistakes like then suddenly start centering your composition, because you want to get a way out of it. So I think all that is important.
Yeah, also a little while back, to come back to what you were saying, shooting in top light. I now remember Ashokji telling us about how he shot Bandit Queen completely in top light because he said, "Madhya Pradesh hai, गर्मी लगनी चाहिए वहाँ की." लगनी चाहिए, बिल्कुल धूप में होता है वहां पे, हर आदमी की काला हो जाता है धूप से, तो वो धूप कितनी कड़क है वो लगनी चाहिए. So he
Yeah.
just filled up the whole place with skimmers and shot everything in top light.
It was brilliant. That film was so awesome. Like he was the true master.
Your portrait of him that is there, still there in their home, is
Yeah.
very nice. And I remember him saying, Rajiv, still photography bhi bahut achhi karta hai. I did not know how involved you were with it at that time until today. Thank you for this wonderful, wonderful talk. I was a little late in getting in, but yeah, thank you so much. It was really nice. And we hope to meet someday and really catch up on many things. I'd love to listen to so much of what you have to tell us.
Absolutely. We'll meet in
We
Sweden.
need one more whole session with Rajiv to get.
Yeah.
And we still haven't touched music. We still haven't touched so many things that
Oh yes,
one could talk to Rajiv about. I mean, Rajiv is a wonderful singer, by the way.
I could have tell that a little bit.
Yeah,
You hit the right notes.
yeah. He can even
Anyway,
sing Bangla songs.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. We used to be always fascinated by, Satyajit Ray's films. So in Chennai couldn't get to see his films. So we had Hirak Raja Deshe, that beautiful film had come. So it stayed on for a week in our institute. So we wanted to see it every day. And they said, hey, you cannot get it to see it every day and all. You have seen it now enough. So we used to go and put it on the moviola and play that song. So I managed to mug up that song by hearing it on the moviola. I don't have the record. I don't know whether I'm saying the right words. I don't know. But that one Satyajit Ray song went straight into my head. So since Sudeep Da told me about Bangla song, for Sudeep Da,
You
I'll share.
must. You must. You must.
আহাকে আনন্দ আকাশে বাবাসে তররারি তররারা প্রতিশোভা তররাতা আহাকে আনন্দ আকাশে বাবাসে. So
Wonderful.
So wonderful.
anyway, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the things. Any questions from the people on the
There were
chat that we
many
have left
questions.
out?
Yeah,
There
can
were
you
many,
see
many
anything?
questions.
You want to address anything out of it? Can you see any, Vinay? Can you look at the questions?
Don't invite them because this is then we'll be sitting whole night here.
No, I think we'll just get Nandit Desai had a question. Nandit, just unmute. Nandit, are you there? Can you hear us? Nandit Desai. Okay, I'll just read out his question to you, Rajiv. Nandit Desai asked, ever since digital has become the preferred medium among Indian cinematographers, it seems to have given birth to a strange kind of aesthetic with regards to how the image looks. Compared to the other parts of the world where films are made, the image looks less and less film-like. The picture here is razor sharp. The lighting has become monochromatic, deep blacks, and the grade does not serve the film, especially the period films that look like they were shot yesterday. What is your opinion on this?
No, I think I think he's expressing an opinion, so I can't contradict his opinion. That's his view on it, but I don't completely concur with his view because I think Padmavati was very well shot, and I think Vajirao was very well shot, and I think and there are some period films which have worked, but um, one thing that I do feel is that I feel there has been a decline of lighting. I mean, I feel lighting is emotion. And I feel in a lot of places you can shoot now. Like go to a police station, you can shoot. You can go to every place, you can shoot. So what has happened is it's become illumination. Illumination gives you information. Lighting gives you emotion. And I think we have had a bit of, a lot of that. So, and then because we are, it's only in the OTT platform that you can actually say, okay, let me go completely edgy and grungy and do that kind of stuff. And the whole exercise is now when I create my own LUT, and what is the kind of LUT that I'm going to, you know, have for the film. So the part of the process of exercise of a filmmaker today is also to say, this is the kind of tone I'm going to do, and this is the kind of fall off I'm going to have in the shadows, and this is what it is. So I think while the light meter may have been used less and less, I think we'll have to use more and more DaVinci Resolve, and we'll have to get more and more responsible for our picture, and we have to control it right on the spot. The other thing I feel is, you know, when you keep on looking at an image, and you're looking at an image in a monitor which has so much of reflection, and it is not absolutely telling you what you can get, you become conservative and you fill too much. So because you fill too much, I feel the images are, you know, becoming functional, and and you know, in your side you're suddenly looking through the iPhone, suddenly you're doing this. So you know, when you look at an image through the iPhone, and when you look at an image through the thing, your eye to that is going, you know, you're paid for this. You're not paid to look at 5 different things. You are paid to look, you know, and I think that, I think, is so important. And I remember when I went to work with Shaji Karun as an in the institute, I found him, you know, he would do all this, and suddenly he would do like this. He would keep looking at things like this. Basically, he was cutting off the flare and trying to look at what will be the contrast that he would get. I think that is, to me, a bit of a problem. That is, you know, not operating with your eyepiece, not operating with your monitor, and then, you know, letting lighting go down and it becoming, you know, illumination. And then those are the kind of worries that you have, and you want to make sure you can sort of, you know, take up. I mean, you got to ask that quick question, that this image that you create today, will it stand the test of time 20 years from now? I mean, we are responsible for, you know, our images. It must last. So I think there is a lot of sense of pride that is required, and it can only happen when the director wants that and everybody else wants that. And you can see that some of the, you know, the most beautifully shot films in the last maybe 5 or 6 years have come from Bansali and Sudeep and all of them, because they are really, you know, trying to do what they want to do. I mean, their vision is maximalism. Their vision is, you know, like hundreds of chandeliers and, you know, trailing cloth and things like that. But it has a vision, and I think that's very important to have. You know?
Right.
Thank you.
But don't you think, I mean, both Sudeep da and like even in the case of Padmavat or the other one, both Mr. Bansali's film, they have been, I mean, no doubt they have been beautifully shot, undoubtedly, one of the classics. But I think the guy was referring to, in my opinion, is the post-production work. The post-production is razor sharp. You know, it looks like, you know, the period has gone and it is too sharp. You know, the post-production guys have use all their brushes on the faces, on the skin tones, everything, where I think even you know, cinematographer will differ with that. You know, why so much why you're pumping so much of brushes here, so razor sharp.
Yeah, I think it's like, if you look at a series like Crown, you know, I mean, the one on Britain, it
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
so nice. It's like, it has the right kind of softness. It has, they
Exactly,
use
yeah.
older lenses, and they are now, everybody has his own signature kind of a look. So it's not that you need razor sharp lenses, you know, for to start off with, and you're not going to project it into such a big screen. So why do you need this? You know, all the pimples are there, and then you want these actors to come and say, clean my pimples, and you know, that kind of remove my wrinkles and remove my pimples. It's all part of their contract now, you know. So what has happened is, um, uh, that one side, and then all the post production houses are. It's like Accutance is like really squeezed up. So it's like on the Lightroom, you have just dehazed all the pictures and you're trying to get max clarity, you know. And you don't need to just because knobs are there. When you are going and sitting on a resolve, you don't know whether that fellow has squeezed his clarity down to max or whether he has completely dehazed your picture. So that's really the problem that you have when you once you start seeing crisp razor sharp pictures, then you kind of get scared to start pulling it down. But it has to be that's why I feel cinematographers must have their own lightrooms, must have their own thing. You must take R3D files out of it. You must grade it on a regular basis, and we must carry our own lookbooks to the grading room and say, "Hey, this is the way I visualized it. If you can make it better, great."
What do you say, Sudeep? When you were shooting, did you visualize the same the way it has come out?
I'm
In the
sorry,
case of
this is in.
Padmavat, or I mean, they look like hardcore fashion, absolutely clear skin. The way it has been worked on, that's how you visualize.
I think that
Yes, I mean,
I
what
also
you see in the
think
film
that's
is
to
the
do
way I visualized it.
Okay.
Sudeepta, I think it's also to do with we are so used to of seeing foreign all these Firangi films, graded in a certain way, like in a little greenish, little. You subdue the colors a little bit, and so used to of seeing period films like that. That in
Yeah.
in context, when we want to see our red as
I mean,
red.
for me, definitely a foreign film like that wasn't a reference point. Uh, so yeah, to answer the question, I mean, what you see is the way we wanted it to be seen. So I mean,
Fair enough.
yeah, I mean, there was no reference point of any European films which had to have a certain degree of
Europe has a
desaturation.
different light. They have a different tones and different
Yeah,
cast.
yeah.
Of course, as
So
Sarun is saying rightly, they have a green cast and they have
And a very important thing, and a very different audience.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, so what you
absolutely.
saw was not an accident. I mean, or not a mistake. It was the way it was intended.
no, it was not mistake. It was something like a point of view, as he's rightly said, opinion. When you
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
sure,
period
fair enough.
film, so
Hmm.
period film, and then this will look like a razor sharp film, absolutely clear skin, which is
Yeah,
like beyond imagination. So somewhere it is. I think
yeah.
it was.
But I mean, yeah, that's it. But I mean, if we can squeeze in any more time, we'd love to hear Rajiv rather than. Uh,
I think
Well played, Sudeep. Well played.
Yeah.
yeah, I think if you look at all those films, you find an aesthetic which kind of evolved out of Pakistan, Mughal Azam, and all that kind of thing. So if you look at this way the song, you can actually see the curtain going up in Mughal Azam exactly the same way it went up in Devdas. The same kind of frames are there. So the reference points for most of that era, these two films, is Fatehpur Sikri. And in Fatehpur Sikri is a rigid geometry. So you have symmetry and geometry. I mean, you got to understand where people are coming from and what their influence is. So when you go to a Mughal garden, you are going to see rectangles and rectangles and the
Symmetrical,
sense of
asymmetrical,
water
yeah.
body in it. So they were governed by geometry, but it would be completely different if you were to go to the uh, gufas of Elephanta and make something, or you go to Ajanta and Ellora's caves, because that is not rigid geometry like that, but in the arches and curves and turns would be more interesting. The other thing which I find also is the role of art direction there. If you look at Lord of the Rings, they had made a conscious decision that they're not going to have 90 degrees. So all the the things are curving at a certain thing. So the moment geometry goes away, your compositional style starts changing, and then you have got this muddied light. So you don't put light on the face of the person, and you are letting the backlight come in, and that's what Ashok ji had spoken about, backlight and front light. So you're basically trying to figure out is how much can you downgrade the image without. Now in every film you have flare, and people are dancing, just put two or three lights there, put one flare. Why is there flare all the time? It looks like the sun is setting all the time in every film. It's going to be as stupid as the star filter. in the star filter, they used to gumave it, and when the girl will come.
So true, so
I
true.
think that this era is going to be called the continuous setting sun of Indian cinema.
Or rising sun, both ways.
Rajiv, I'd like to ask something here since we are so much talking about cinema. I mean, the way, the budgets and the big production and with small screens coming out and all this cable and all that. You worked on some really big budgets, big film, big directors. How do you see in terms of cinema going forward? I mean, mainstream I'm talking about because, the business of it, the money of it. You think big cinema will survive, or will it be only those few who will be just doing it on the top?
I think this lockdown is going to change a lot of things because people are sitting and watching Patal Lok, and I think Patal Lok has hit harder than most other people ever imagined anything that came.
Yeah.
You can release any shitty B grade film because you couldn't release it. You can put it on Netflix, but the fact remains that that grit and that story, something has hit across India. Everybody's talking about it, and I really like the work also. So what I think is important is you need a Patal Lok like film to come out and run in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and suddenly the industry will wake up and say, "Arey yaar, ye wahan bhi chali yaar, to yehi karna chahiye." So they are only bothered about that. So what happened is the Indian film industry was Hindi film industry was completely chaotic. Everybody, they were doing 3 shifts a day, and it was mess. And then you had to have one guy called uh, you know, basically in Dil Chahta Hai, they decided to finish the film in X number of days, and Mr. Amir Khan was convinced. And the moment he was convinced, a certain discipline that a shoot will start in certain time, it will end, enforced by Farhan and his sister. They got the film in time in a certain budget, meant that everybody shifted. And everybody shifted to live sound. So if something works and if seen as something, then people will shift for the better. So nobody wants to do bad work and nobody wants to continue doing bad work. But it's just that the experimental work, which is progressive, must have commercial significance. Otherwise, they'll say, "Oh, sir, art mein kar sakte hai, OTT mein kar sakte hai, yahan nahi ho sakta hai." So already you're seeing the quality of the performances, whether it's Delhi Crime, whether it is, Patal Lok, or whether it is the writing and execution in Family Man. All these things have sort of, moved the bar away from the kind of cosmetic Bombay look to, we have not seen hardcore, India for so long. Now you see even Yash Chopra's films, Yash Raj films are going and shooting in Chitrakoot. So you find it's not Mumbai or Delhi, which are the locations for Hindi cinema, and you're seeing all other places. And I think that's a very positive thing that is coming about.
In fact, Shujit's film is coming now. I think it's on Prime. It's coming. Gulabo Sitabo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's launching. He's premiering on Prime Video only now.
Yeah.
9th.
So it's going to change. Definitely there's cross fertilization is going to happen, and when characters are more interesting, more time to write, and if actors do better jobs, and if cinematographers can do equally interesting jobs, then you will see another spurt of creativity coming.
Yeah.
Another thing which I noticed, talking about Prime, I mean, I saw one of the old classics, commercial classics, Rishida's film called Chupke Chupke, which is my all-time favorite feel-good film. You ever feel down, just see that film. And I think the screenplay, there is just no flaw in that film, according to me, in the writing. I just saw it, and I don't know what it is, but I saw it, either they have restored it to such a beautiful quality that, I was so shocked to see Chupke Chupke, Golmaal and Anand on Prime or Netflix, and so beautifully restored. So I was like shocked that, I mean, is this some new technology, or it didn't even look artificial or digital, but it was so beautifully restored and really good.
There is a lot of restoration work going on, which is very good, and that's where I think digital has really saved us, because a lot of the negatives had gone to dogs, especially the ones we shot on camera.
And details which are there on the film, which I'm sure the original didn't have, but it was looking so real and so not over the top. And I was like, so lovely to see. see everything, with a renewed sense of vision. I thought I was pleasantly surprised. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
So, Rajiv, I think we have really chewed up, a lot of your
Wonderful session. Huh?
your energy into this. It's just been so brilliant. I'm sure there are so many more questions out there, but I think the biggest thing for us, especially for a lot of still photographers like me, to hear the perspective you had, the richness, the historical context, and see somebody who works in in cinema business and is still so connected to where stills what sense they make. So really appreciate. I guess everybody can do their little thank you, and we have to meet in person, hopefully. Once this curtain goes off.
I must thank all of you and this really distinguished panel. And I must really thank Sudeep for having got me into this. And I admire all of your work. And I and I and I really believe that we are part of a larger family, and we are all people who are obsessed about looking through glass and watching human beings and hopefully capturing a certain moment for posterity. And well, we are blessed to be doing this job, and it's so nice to look through the lens, and I still love it. That's the
So beautiful, lovely. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Samar, can I have last question? One more.
Please, of course. Unmute time.
No, I'm unmuted only. I'm not just starting my video. So basically, this question is actually on behalf of my wife. She wants to ask that the kind of stuff that we see in Malayali films, I mean, like cinematography and the production quality and everything. Uh, when you think that Bollywood will start coming to that sort of a level heights?
Yeah, I think we have seen a sudden surge in the quality of the productions coming out of Kerala in the last 5 years, I would say, and and there's been a lot of good practices, great actors coming out there. I mean, like Fahad Fasil and Sobin and all these people have been, and the writing is really the catch. So there's a lot of improvisation, there's a lot of relationship, and the directors and cinematographers are buddies. And I think that is fantastic. Can you imagine that you have Shaiju and Samir Tahir as, well, one was an assistant to somebody, and most assistants don't want to talk to their bosses after some time. Then these two guys are buddies and friends. And not only that, they get together and they produce a film. And then not only they produce a film called Sudani from Nigeria, they make 8 crores profit on that. I mean, and they make a really good film, and they actually go to Nigeria and shoot it. So I think there is a kind of a comradeship that is there between them. And if a cinematographer is going to make a film, then 2 or 3 other buggers are saying, okay, I'll also come and help you, and I'll come together. That sense of comradeship is there. It is the day that comradeship comes in, and the day that we learn to be together and not sit in it's my job, your job, kind of a the demarcation that this industrial way of looking at production, but as a kind of collaborative cottage industry. We are all sitting on the same floor, and patre mein, we are what do you call, we are sitting and doing our work in the workshop. Then we are okay. I think it's a lot of collaboration, and nature is beautiful in Kerala. That is another aspect that it's really God's own country. So
Yeah, really
you
got
don't
some.
have to work very hard to get good frame there. So,
True, true. Thank you so much for answering that. Thank you.
Excellent.
see you guys.
All right, folks.
Thank you, Samar, and thank you, Rajiv. It's been such a wonderful session. Unfortunately, we don't have Devang Modi, our champion concluder. For all our sessions, he has some electricity problems, so he's put the onus on me. Uh, Thank you once again for your time, Rajiv. And Samar, you so truly said it, even before the session started, that this session is going to be a wonderful bridge between photography and cinematography. And as Rajiv, said in his concluding remarks that we all are a family obsessed with looking through glass. This in every sense was truly, in quotes, a masterclass for all of us. Thank you, Rajiv. It's been a very, very important session, and you made such an important point that the difference between cinematography and photography is actually coming down every minute. And we still photographers need to focus on one thing, we need to find our own voice. I personally will never forget what you said, that lighting is not for emotion. Lighting is basically for emotion. It's not just for illumination. How beautiful a statement that was. And it's been such a great learning. We started these sessions at F.Stop in March, and exactly on March 24th, I think, when the lockdown was announced, thinking we'll have 5 or 7 sessions, and we called it the lockdown series. And I'm sure all of us agree that, these sessions have helped each one of us sail the lockdown one and the lockdown two and the lockdown three and the lockdown four. And now, as we call it, the unlock one. If nothing else, it's actually made our lives much more easier throughout these 2 months. And it's such an honor today, as we conclude almost around our 40th session today in this series, and each session has got better by the day. So we are continuing these sessions now on every Sunday, and I have actually highlighted my Sunday and renamed as Inspiration Day now for the for the coming weeks. And we promise all our audiences that have been such a wonderful audience that we try our best to continue these sessions every Sunday, and try to make them better. Thank you everybody for your love. Thank you, Summer, for your time and for all the effort. And a big salute to you, Rajiv sir. It's been such a great learning. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Thank you so much, Samar. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Lovely session. Thank you so much.
Just
Thank you.
requesting all the participants,
Yeah.
other than the panelists, to please log off. Thank you very much for attending, and do follow us on Instagram and YouTube for more information on the upcoming talks. Thank you to all the participants once again.
Thank you.